I died on a Wednesday. No last words, no dramatic final breath, no slow motion moment of clarity, just a mission, then nothing. My name was Cale Dren, Special Operations, 12 years of service, 41 missions, classified locations, classified outcomes. The last one went wrong. A black site extraction in a mountain range that didn't appear on any map worth trusting by anyone. We were going in to pull a scientist. Clean job, tight window, 4-man team. Except someone had sold us out before wheels up. I remember the ambush, the cold air hitting my face, the sound of my team going silent one by one like lights being switched off. A tranq dart caught me in the neck. I had maybe 3 seconds to register how embarrassing that was. Then the world went dark. I expected a void, maybe some cosmic waiting room with bad lighting. What I got instead was a smell, antiseptic and cold metal, and underneath that smell, something biological, something warm and alive and very close. And then I realized it was me. I was the warm thing. I opened my eyes, both of them, simultaneously, which sounds normal until you realize I was used to one eye at a time behind a scope. White tile ceiling, fluorescent lights, the kind of sterile brightness that makes everything feel like evidence of something. And then I looked down at my body and found 4 legs, white fur, and paws the size of my old thumb. I was a wolf pup, not metaphorically, not some spiritual awakening nonsense. Actual paws, actual fur, weeks old at most based on the size of my own feet. I was in a cage, steel bars, a small water bowl, a blanket that smelled like it had never once been washed by a human being. Let me just sit with that for exactly 1 second. 12 years of black ops, multiple languages, tactical training that broke grown men. And I woke up as a furry potato with ears in a laboratory cage. The irony was so thick I nearly drowned in it from the inside. Old instincts kicked in before the shock did. That's the thing about real training. It bypasses your feelings and goes straight to function. Assess, count exits, identify threats, establish timeline. The body was new, but the brain was still entirely, stubbornly mine. Exits, 1 reinforced door to my left, keypad lock, no visible hinge vulnerabilities, 1 ventilation shaft overhead, far too small even for a pup. Threats, 3 humans in white lab coats moving between equipment stations, 1 woman near the far wall, 2 men doing things I couldn't name, timeline, unknown. I had no idea how long I'd been here, what day it was, or what world this even was, starting from 0, because this was clearly not my world. The equipment was too advanced, and not in a familiar direction. The layout was wrong, the symbols wrong. The symbols on the wall near the door were not decorative. They were functional labels, system markers. I had seen similar logic in classified facilities, same principle, different characters. Whoever built this place had the organizational mindset of military infrastructure. Purpose over aesthetics, always. That told me something about who was running this program. Not purely academic, not purely governmental, something in between those 2 categories. The intersection of academic research and military application, black budget territory, the kind of project that doesn't show up on any public record ever. I had spent half my career in the shadow of those projects. I knew the fingerprints. This had them all over it, which made it more dangerous, not less. The language being spoken around me was close to something I'd heard in Eastern field work, but tilted, like a dialect from a country that didn't exist. Different world, different rules, same cage, a classic situation. I had absolutely no idea what the actual game was, which meant I had to learn fast. The woman with the clipboard walked toward me, sharp eyes behind slim glasses, the focused look of someone who genuinely loves their work too much. She looked at me the way I used to look at mission briefings, analytical, like I was a variable she was determining the value of. I made my first real decision in this new body. Play dumb, be the pup, blink slowly, tilt head, look profoundly confused about existence itself. She reached through the bars and scratched behind my ear. And here is the part I will never fully forgive my new body for. It leaned into it, completely, without asking me. My dignity exited the situation and did not look back on its way out. I kept my face perfectly blank and my eyes perfectly empty. A masterwork of performed stupidity that cost me something real inside. Subject 7 is responsive, she said to the room. Neural activity is within expected parameters. Her voice was clinical, satisfied. Subject 7. That was me now, not Cale Dren. Not a decorated operative with 12 years of service, a numbered animal in a cage. I filed the name, filed the number, filed the fact that she had expected parameters ready, which meant she had expected me specifically. The lab was large. From my position, I could observe maybe 40% of the room, banks of equipment, monitors, multiple workstations. Most of the other cages along the far wall were empty. 2 were not, and what was in those 2 stopped my internal monologue cold. To my left, a A large adult wolf, silver gray fur, lying motionless in a way that wasn't sleep. Too rigid, too still. Wrong kind of still. To my right, another pup. Black fur, golden eyes, watching me with an expression that had absolutely no business being on an animal's face. That pup was thinking, not reacting to stimuli, not following instinct. Thinking about something specific with intent, with focus. I filed that immediately into the priority stack. If I had reincarnated here, there was no reason another person couldn't have done the same. The woman, I would come to know her as Dr. Seni, moved back to her main station and began writing in her clipboard with efficiency. I watched her hands, the angle of her wrist when she wrote, the specific way she touched her earpiece when the far door opened. Every single detail was data, and data, right now, was the only weapon available to a creature with no hands and no voice in this world. The far door opened. A tall, broad man walked in with a different color badge. The kind of badge that changes posture in everyone nearby. Senior authority is director level or above, based on the micro-adjustments the other 3 staff made when he entered the space. He walked directly to my cage, looked down at me with the flat, evaluating expression of someone assessing an asset against a cost. I tilted my head, let my tongue out slightly, blinked with the maximum vacant innocence available to a creature of my new dimensions. He seemed satisfied, made a note on his tablet, said something to Dr. Senna that I couldn't fully catch at this angle and distance. She nodded twice. He left. I had 4 seconds of his voice on record in my memory. Not enough for the full language map, but a start. 3 words repeated in what he said. One that felt like accelerate, one like results, and one that had the rhythm of a hard deadline. They were running against a clock someone else had set. That was critical operational intelligence, and I had it on day 1. Good start. Over the following hours, I began constructing a mental model of the lab's rhythms. Staff rotation every 6 hours, always 2 present minimum. The equipment nearest my cage appeared to be running real-time biological monitoring, specifically my biological data, my heart rate, my brain. Someone was actively watching my neural activity. That created a serious problem I had not anticipated and needed to solve immediately. If they were tracking my brain in real time, complex cognition would appear as anomalous data. An animal subject thinking like a human is a flag, which meant I had to think stupid, not just act stupid, actually suppress my cognitive patterns to something an animal would produce on a scan. For a man who once memorized 47 enemy positions from a 3-second aerial photograph, this was going to be a significant challenge. I spent the rest of that first day practicing. Slow thoughts at the surface, simple sensory inputs. Let the deep processing happen underneath, like controlling your breathing on a dive. Visible calm, invisible effort, everything that mattered happening where no one could see it. On the second day, Dr. Senna ran what she called a baseline assessment. She lifted me from the cage with practiced clinical hands. I went limp, boneless, maximum pup energy. She carried me to a small maze and set me at the entrance with her clipboard ready. I ran it slowly, made one deliberate wrong turn in the 3rd section. Found the exit at a pace that was impressive but not alarming. Smart for an animal, explicable. Within the range of what exceptional canine cognition might produce. She made notes, seemed satisfied. Then she moved to the black pup. And the black pup ran the maze in exactly half my time. 0 wrong turns. Sat down, waited for applause. Dr. Senna stared at her stopwatch for a moment longer than was comfortable. Then she made many notes. Then she called someone on her earpiece. After the maze incident with the black pup, Dr. Senna's notes went from routine to intensive. I could see the difference in how she held the clipboard. She wrote faster, more. She filled 2 full pages where she usually filled half of one. The black pup had given her data she had not been expecting this soon. From a scientific perspective, I understood the excitement. From an operational perspective, I wanted to reach through the bars and shake the black pup hard. You just handed them exactly what they wanted, I thought loudly in the direction of those golden eyes. The golden eyes did not look apologetic at all. I mentally facepalmed. Hard. Whoever was in that black pup had absolutely no operational survival instincts whatsoever. None. 0. You do not show your full hand on day 1 in enemy territory. You do not perform above explainable levels. This is kindergarten tradecraft. But it confirmed what I had suspected. The black pup had someone inside it. Someone confident or reckless, or both. Probably both. That night the lights dimmed, and the lab went to overnight mode. 1 rotating guard, 20-minute intervals, reduced monitoring attention. For the first time since waking up in this body, I let myself think at full capacity. No suppression, no surface-level performance. Just thought. What do I actually know? First, I am in an advanced research facility studying animal cognition with a specific interest in my neural patterns. Second, the facility operates under external pressure from a deadline set by someone above the director. The timeline is accelerating. Third, at least one other subject in this room is also not what it appears. The black pup is either another reincarnation or something else. Fourth, the adult wolf is undergoing something more intensive than observation. The nature of it is unknown. That makes it priority intelligence. Fifth, I have no knowledge of this world's rules, power structures, or what I'm supposed to become here. I'm operating entirely blind. Blind operations get people killed. I needed information before I could make any useful moves, which meant observe, memorize, and wait. Easy plan. Totally straightforward. I was a wolf pup with no hands and no way to write anything down, but it was all I had. On the third day, the director returned with two people I had not seen before. Neither wore lab coats. One wore a dark, formal uniform, military, or security equivalent, the bearing that belongs to people who have spent years being the most dangerous presence in any room. She scanned the cages with the expression I used to wear when reviewing mission assets. Cold, practical, measuring value against operational risk. She stopped at the adult wolf for a long moment, said something sharp. The director's response carried a tone just short of defensive. Then she looked at me, then at the space where the black pup sat, then back at me. Her gaze was thorough, measuring something specific. She said one word to the director, just one, and every person in the room went absolutely, immediately, completely still when she said it. I did not know the word yet, but I knew exactly what that kind of word meant. It meant someone important had turned serious attention this way. I thought about the tanks every night during the quiet rotation hours. What exactly did suspended mean for the people inside them? Were they aware? In my old field work, I had encountered sensory deprivation techniques used as interrogation tools. Extended suspension produced specific psychological effects. If the people in those tanks retained consciousness, even partial consciousness, then the duration of their imprisonment was a horror I did not want to calculate. The urgency this created in me was not just tactical, it was moral. And moral urgency, I had learned, was the most reliable fuel for difficult operations. That night I made my first physical move. Small, carefully timed. When the guard's rotation created a 15-degree window in my sightline, I shifted position, just enough to see a section of the lab I had not been able to see from my usual spot. What I saw stopped me. Along the far wall, behind a partition I had not been able to observe before, was a row of large cylindrical tanks filled with pale blue liquid. And inside each tank was a shape, humanoid, suspended, not moving, the kind of motionless that is not sleep and is not death either. The lab was not just studying animals. There were human subjects, or human-adjacent subjects, suspended in those tanks, waiting for something. My operational mode shifted from passive intelligence gathering to active investigation. This was not just about survival anymore. This was bigger. But I was still a wolf pup with no thumbs, no voice, and a neural monitoring system actively watching my brain for signs of complex thinking. So my options remained precisely zero. I just knew more about what I was up against, which was something. Not much, but something. I spent the fourth day refining my staff analysis. Not just who was senior and who was junior. Specifically, who had doubts. Doubts are the cracks in any organization. Doubts are how information leaks. Doubts are what turns an obstacle into an asset over time. The nervous one was a young man, brown hair, always checking his watch, posture slightly hunched at his station like he was bracing for something. He made stress movements that were familiar to me, hand to mouth twice when reading results, longer bathroom breaks with tighter expressions on return. I started mentally calling him Thomas. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew his type, and his type was useful if handled with patience. I spent a lot of that first week studying the adult wolf during the gaps when staff attention was directed elsewhere, watching for signs, finding them. The way it sometimes turned its head slightly when specific researchers spoke, as if tracking speech patterns rather than just sound and movement. The way it occasionally looked at the equipment near its cage with what I could only describe as assessment. Not fear, not pain response, analysis. Whoever was in that body had been in it long enough to adapt, long enough to develop the same surface performance I was still practicing, much longer than me, which meant they had intelligence I did not have. Months or years of accumulated observation in this facility, stored in a mind I had no way to access yet. If I could communicate with the adult wolf, if there was enough left of whoever was inside to communicate with, that changed the entire operational picture. On the fifth day, they moved the black pup. Two researchers lifted the cage and carried it through the far door I had not been able to see beyond. The golden eyes found mine for exactly 1 second before the door closed between us. Something passed in that look that I could not fully name. Recognition, maybe? Or a warning, or both at once. I filed it as critical unknown and held it at the top of my mental priority list. Wherever they had taken the black pup, it was deeper into this facility, which meant this building had more to it than I had seen so far. The adult wolf made a low sound that afternoon. Not quite a growl. The researchers did not react, which meant they were used to it happening. I turned and looked at the adult wolf directly for the first time. large, even diminished, old scars along its flank, eyes glassy and unfocused. Whatever they were doing to it had been going on for a while. Whatever it was taking was visible in the weight of every breath it drew. But then, for just a moment, those eyes focused, found me, held me, not the unfocused gaze of an animal, something deliberate, someone deliberate. I was completely certain in that moment that the adult wolf was not just an animal. There was a person in there, running out of time. By end of the first week, I had the lab rotation memorized to the minute. Every badge type, every door requirement, every audio cue. I knew Dr. Sene worked late on Tuesdays, that she took one personal call around 9 in the evening, turned slightly away, lowered her voice. I knew the director's left leg limp worsened noticeably by end of day when fatigue compounded whatever old injury he was managing in silence. I knew Thomas had gone to his station twice and stopped, staring at the wall for exactly the kind of duration that means a person is questioning something. None of it was actionable, but information is never wasted. Everything goes into the file builds the picture shows the door. On day 8, they brought in new equipment, large crates on wheeled carts, unwrapped with the particular care reserved for expensive, fragile things. The lab's energy changed. Staff moved faster, spoke less. The specific urgency of a room that knows a significant procedure is about to happen. Dr. Senna recalibrated the monitors near my cage. New sensors were attached to the bars. The data output on the nearest screen increased in complexity. I understood then, whatever was coming next was about me specifically, and it was significant enough that they had ordered specialized equipment for it. I kept every external signal perfectly slow, breathing steady, body loose and relaxed, face a masterwork of blissful animal ignorance. Inside, every single alarm I had developed over 12 years of running dangerous operations was screaming at the same time simultaneously. The director arrived with 2 people wearing badges I had not seen before. Dark blue with a white border, not lab staff, not security, oversight. They stood back and observed while Dr. Senna prepared the table. Their posture was the posture of people who had been waiting for specific results. She opened my cage, lifted me with gloved hands. I went perfectly limp, the boneless pup that had become my most reliable performance. She placed me on a padded examination table, attached small sensors to my head, my paws, my chest, the monitors filled with real-time data streams. One of the oversight visitors leaned toward the screens. I recognized that expression. I had seen it on intelligence analysts reviewing a breakthrough. The hunger mixed with vindication of someone who has been right about something for a long time and is finally watching it be confirmed. Whatever they were searching for in my neural data, whatever pattern or signal they had expected to find, they believed they were about to see it. I made a choice. Not to panic, not to fight, to think about grass, about open ground, simple sensory inputs, pup-level brain activity at the surface. The monitors showed them exactly what I wanted them to see. Baseline animal cognition, no anomalies, nothing worth getting excited about. The visitor's expression recalibrated slightly, not disappointed, adjusting expectations. They exchanged a look with the director and said something low. Dr. Senna glanced at me with a look I had not seen from her before. Not disappointed, patient. Like she was waiting for something I hadn't done yet. She knew. I was almost completely certain in that moment that she knew there was more happening in my brain than the monitors were showing her. She was not trying to expose it. She was waiting for me to expose it myself. She was running a patience operation on me, in my cage. I decided in that moment, Dr. Senna was the most dangerous person in this room. Not the director, not the military woman, not the oversight visitors. The quiet one with the clipboard and the patient eyes. Always the quiet one. 12 years in the field had taught me that much, at minimum. She placed me back in the cage. I curled into a ball and performed settling down to sleep with the commitment of a trained professional. Behind my closed eyes, I was reconstructing everything I had just observed and building it into a cleaner operational picture with new elements. The oversight badges, dark blue, white border, independent from the lab chain of command, a funding organization, governmental body, or both, the specialized equipment they had brought, neural mapping technology of a specific and advanced variety. They were not just measuring, they were searching for a specific pattern, a specific signal, one that would appear in a subject whose brain was operating above normal animal parameters, which meant they knew that was possible, which meant they had reasons to know, which meant this was not the first time they had done this. The realization settled over me with the specific weight of intelligence that reframes everything that came before it in a single moment. This facility had done this before, had found reincarnated individuals in animal bodies, had studied them. And then, what came after the study phase? I did not know yet, but I looked at the tanks along the far wall and the suspended shapes inside them and filed a connection marked urgent. The next morning, Thomas came in before the rest of the staff. He moved through the lab with the posture of someone hoping not to be seen. He went directly to the monitoring bank near the far wall and stood there reading data for several minutes. His shoulders were tight throughout. Then he did something that changed my entire understanding of the situation. He took out a personal device, not lab-issued, and photographed the screen. Quickly, casually, like someone who had practiced making a deliberate action look accidental. Then he pocketed it and returned to his normal station. I watched this with the full weight of my attention while maintaining perfect sleeping pup posture in the corner of my cage with eyes half-lidded. Thomas was collecting data for someone outside this facility, which meant information was moving out through personal channels. The facility had a leak. That was the first genuinely exploitable piece of intelligence I had collected, my first real asset, and I still had no hands to use it with. The day after I observed Thomas photographing the screen, he came in 20 minutes early again. Same routine, different screen, same personal device out. He was systematic about it, not panicked, not impulsive. A person with a plan and a contact and a specific purpose. An asset already in motion. The question was, whose asset? An internal whistleblower? An external intelligence organization? A journalist with extraordinary access and a death wish? Whatever the answer, the critical fact was that he had a line out. And a line out meant a line I could potentially use, if I could reach it somehow. I spent the rest of that day composing, mentally, in complete detail, what I would do if I had hands. A notebook, a device, a voice. None of those things were options. But the exercise wasn't pointless. It showed me clearly what I needed and gave me a direction to build toward. I needed to communicate, specifically with Thomas, because he was already compromised, already working outside this facility's trust, already useful. The question was how a wolf pup communicates complex intent to a conflicted junior researcher without triggering the neural monitors watching the wolf pup. I thought about that question for approximately 12 hours. The answer I arrived at was inelegant, but it was the only answer available. The maze. Dr. Sen ran maze assessments twice weekly. The next one was 2 days out. I had been performing at impressive but explainable levels. For the next test, I would perform at a level that could not be explained by animal cognition. But I would do it while looking directly at Thomas, not sending a message, not revealing intelligence, just creating a moment that would catch his specific attention and make him look more closely at me. If he was the person I believed him to be, and everything I had observed pointed the same direction, closer attention from Thomas was what I needed. 2 days of preparation, watching, refining. The adult wolf's condition was visibly deteriorating, and I felt the weight of that against my timeline. Whatever they were doing to it was accelerating. If there was a person in that body, they were running out of runway faster than I had assumed. Patient long-game planning only works when time is available. Time, it was becoming very clear, was not the resource I had thought I had. I adjusted the plan, shortened the observation phase, accepted more risk in exchange for faster movement. It was the only rational choice available. 2 days later, Dr. Sene ran the maze assessment. She lifted me, carried me to the setup, placed me at the start with clipboard ready. I sat still for exactly 1 moment. Then I looked across the room and found Thomas standing at his observation position near the far wall. I held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then I turned back to the maze, and then I ran it the way I used to move through real terrain. Efficient, zero wasted motion, no hesitation at decision points, every turn chosen with the kind of precision that doesn't come from animal instinct. I finished in a time that wasn't close to possible for any animal, not in the range, not even with generous interpretation of canine intelligence. The room went quiet, in the specific way rooms go quiet when something has happened that no one has a category for yet. Complete silence. Dr. Senna looked at her stopwatch, looked at me, looked at the monitor data. Her expression showed nothing. That itself told me something. The other researchers exchanged glances. Someone started typing rapidly. Someone else reached for their earpiece without completing the motion. Thomas was staring at me with wide eyes and his mouth slightly open, and the expression of a person whose brain has just been handed a fact it can't file. I sat at the end of the maze, looked up at Dr. Senna, tilted my head in the classic confused pup angle, and then I winked at her once. Full stop. One deliberate wink. From a wolf pup. In a research facility, to the scientist who had been watching my brain for 9 days. Everything in my training said, do not expose yourself, do not reveal intelligence until you have extraction secured and a viable operational plan. But the adult wolf was dying. The black pup was somewhere deeper in this building. And 9 days of gathering had produced 0 actionable options. Sometimes you burn your cover deliberately, because the alternative, staying hidden while everyone around you runs out of time, is worse than exposure. Dr. Senna did not move for a long moment. Then she spoke to the room quietly. Clear the lab. Everyone out. 20 minutes. Compliance was immediate. Thomas was the last one out. He paused in the doorway and looked back at me with an expression I could not fully categorize. Then the door closed. Dr. Senna pulled a chair directly in front of my cage, sat down, clasped her hands in her lap, looked at me the way people look when it's time. Then she spoke, not in the lab's primary language, in a language I recognized from field assignments in a region that no longer existed on any safe map. She was from my world, or she had been briefed extensively by someone who was. Either way, we had a common reference point that changed everything. "I'm not going to pretend," she said quietly. "The monitors are still running, but I have been adjusting the interpretation algorithm for 6 days now. What is showing on their screens right now reads as normal animal response." She paused. "I have been covering for you since the 3rd day." She had known since day 3, which meant my cover had been observed through, seen past, and deliberately maintained by the person I most needed to read. Which meant the most dangerous person in the room had been quietly protecting the thing she was most dangerous to. I sat with that for a moment. "You are not the first," she said, "and I do not believe you will be the last. But you might be the one that actually changes something here." I stared at her. 2 people who had been performing careful fictions around each other for 9 days, finally in the same conversation at the same time. I looked at her steadily, and I nodded once. Slowly, deliberately. The nod of a person acknowledging a situation, not an animal responding to stimulus. Her breath came out in a long exhale, the kind that means someone has been holding something for longer than a single moment allows for. She told me what she knew. The facility was called the Ardent Institute. Officially, cognitive research in non-human mammals. Officially was not the truth. 15 years ago, a researcher had found anomalous neural patterns in a captive wolf, patterns that matched no known animal cognition model, patterns that looked, under the right analysis, disturbingly human. The wolf eventually died, not naturally, and the data went up a long chain of command. The result of that chain was the Ardent Institute. The cages, the equipment, the tanks along the far wall with their pale blue liquid and suspended shapes. "I'm going to tell you what the director believes," she said. Her voice was completely flat when she said it, the flatness of controlled revulsion. "He believes the consciousness can be extracted, transferred, that whatever mechanism puts a human mind into an animal body can be reversed and controlled. He wants soldiers," she said, "operatives who pass as animals until deployed, who can enter any environment without triggering human detection systems." The full picture assembled in my mind with the particular clarity that comes when scattered data points suddenly form a coherent and terrible shape. This was not a research facility. This was an involuntary recruitment program, and the subjects who did not cooperate did not survive the study phase. 11 subjects confirmed in 15 years, she said. 3 were currently in the tanks. The others... She stopped. Her expression finished the sentence. I felt something settle into place inside me. Not cold, not rage, resolution. The kind that arrives when a mission scope expands to include harder choices. "I have been here 3 years, she said. I took this position because I believed the cognitive research was legitimate. By the time I understood, it was late. Too late to simply walk out. They would never allow someone with this knowledge to leave. I was in as deep as anyone in this building by then." She had chosen her words with the precision of someone who had rehearsed this exact conversation in her head many times before actually having it. Not because she was lying, because she had been afraid for a long time that she would get this chance and lose it by saying the wrong thing first. That kind of preparation spoke to isolation. She had no one in this facility she could talk to honestly. She had been running this alone for 3 years. 3 years of watching what happened to subjects. 3 years of adjusting data to protect the ones who showed signs. 3 years of waiting. That was a wait. I thought about what it cost to stay in a place like this for 3 years, with full knowledge of what it was doing. The answer was everything it costs. And then I thought about what it said about her that she had stayed anyway, what it said about the plan she had been building while she waited for me. She reached into her coat and placed a small flat disc against the bars of my cage. She slid it through without ceremony or particular drama. "This masks neural signatures," she said. "If you are wearing it, the monitors read baseline animal. You can think without it showing up in their data." I looked at the disc, looked at her, ran through every scenario where this was a trap, ran through every scenario where it wasn't one. I was a wolf pup with no options, in a facility that had killed 11 people before me. The risk calculation wasn't actually complicated. I picked it up with my mouth, and she reached through the bars and attached it to the fur at the back of my neck where it would stay hidden. "Tomorrow I'm moving you to a different section," she said. "Routine relocation, won't raise any flags, but it is where the archive data lives. 15 years of records," she said. "Every subject, every result, every name attached to this program from the beginning to right now." She stood, straightened her coat. The clinical mask came back over her face with the smoothness of someone who had practiced wearing it for years. "The director is out of patience," she said. "The funding body wants results by end of month. That gives us approximately 3 weeks to do something. 3 weeks. I had been in this body for 9 days and had 0 actionable options. 3 weeks was not a generous timeline by any measure. Whatever you were before, she said quietly, looking at me one last time. I hope it was enough for what is in front of you now. She walked to the door and called the team back in. I was in the corner of my cage, eyes closed, looking exactly like a pup that had fallen asleep. Behind those closed eyes, I was already moving. Not physically, mentally, building the new plan around the new information with the new timeline. The neural masking disc was cold against the fur at the back of my neck. Small, simple. The most important object in this entire facility right now. With it, I could think at full capacity. Plan at full capacity. Run every scenario, build every map, identify every variable without broadcasting it to their screens. Without it, I was performing cognitive suppression around the clock while simultaneously trying to run a one-wolf intelligence operation. The disc was freedom, relative freedom. I was still in a cage, still a wolf pup, still 3 weeks from any kind of resolution and surrounded by people who would use me as a weapon. But freedom is always relative. And relative freedom, in my experience, was the only kind that ever actually mattered when the situation was genuinely hard. I thought about the 11 people who had been in cages like mine before me, about what they had known and what they had tried and what had happened to them. They had not had a Dr. Senna covering their data. They had not had a Thomas with a device and an outside line. They had not had a neural masking disc. Every advantage I had over them was something she had built and placed and waited 3 years to deploy. She had been engineering this operation longer than I'd been awake. That thought deserved respect. Also serious scrutiny. But respect first. Then the scrutiny that comes from training and never fully goes away. 3 weeks, a facility with 15 years of secrets, an adult wolf running out of time, a black pup somewhere deeper in the building, Thomas with his device, one scientist who had spent 3 years waiting for exactly the right asset to arrive, and me, a wolf pup with a neural masking disc and no thumbs. I had no voice, no hands, no identity in this world, no extraction route, no backup, no way to verify a single thing Dr. Senna had just told me. 12 years of black ops, 41 missions, 0 regrets. One significant exception. I really should have died somewhere with opposable thumbs. But I was here. Someone had put me here. People were dying in this building. And I had always been better at impossible situations than comfortable ones. 3 weeks. The number settled into my internal rhythm like a countdown I could feel. Not panic. Something colder and more useful than panic. Purpose. That was what it felt like. The same thing I had felt on every mission before insertion. When the planning phase ended and the actual work began, I was already inserted. The mission was already running. The only difference was that this time I had paws, and my primary weapon was patience. Tomorrow would bring the archive section. 15 years of records, names, procedures, outcomes, everything the Ardent Institute had done and planned to do. Information was the foundation. You could not act on what you did not understand. And I was done not understanding what I had woken up inside. The overnight guard's footsteps tracked their rotation with mechanical regularity in the corridor outside. 20 minutes. Exactly 20 minutes every time. I counted the seconds, filed the rhythm, added it to the operational map growing in the back of my mind behind the neural masking disc's quiet protection. Somewhere in this building, the black pup with the golden eyes was in a room I hadn't seen yet, probably making choices I would have advised against. Somewhere in the tanks, along the far wall, 3 people who had woken up in animal bodies were suspended in blue liquid, waiting for something to change. Somewhere the adult wolf was drawing its increasingly shallow breaths and holding on to whatever was left of the person inside it through sheer will alone. And somewhere above this facility, a funding body with dark blue badges was waiting for end-of-month results and had no idea what was building below them. I was ready. The plan was in motion. The timeline was set. All that remained was to execute it without hands, without a voice, without backup of any kind. Just a former special operations soldier in a wolf pup's body, a scientist who had been waiting 3 years, a researcher with a personal device and a secret. Plus 15 years of archived evidence, plus one very deteriorating adult wolf who might still have months of intelligence stored behind those fading eyes. Worse situations had been survived. I was fairly certain about that. I was choosing to be certain about that. It was the only rational option available. The guard completed another rotation. 20 minutes. The lab breathed its quiet, overnight breath around me. I breathed with it, patient, present, ready. If you want to know what happens next, what I found in those archives, what the adult wolf finally told me, and what Thomas was really doing, drop a comment below and let me know, because this story is just getting started. And trust me, what comes next changes everything. The next morning came with the same fluorescent hum and the same antiseptic smell and the same cage bars and 0 improvement in the thumb situation. But I had the disc, and with the disc came something I had not fully had since waking up in this body, the the ability to think like myself. Not the suppressed, surface-level performance I had been running for 9 days. Real thought. Full capacity. Every system online at once. It felt like surfacing after a long dive. That first full breath when you break the water and your lungs remember what they are actually for. I ran through everything Dr. Sene had told me and stress tested every piece of it the way I would stress test any intelligence from a new source. Rule 1 of fieldwork. Assume any single source is incomplete. Assume any motivated source has a blind spot. Trust the data, not the person giving it. She had been here 3 years. That was either dedication to a mission or evidence of compromise deep enough that she had no other options left. Both were possible. Both required the same response from me. Use what she offered. Verify everything independently. Keep my own exit calculations separate. The disc was real. I could feel the difference in what I was allowed to think. That was evidence in her favor. Small but concrete and immediate. The archive access she had promised was the next test. If she delivered it, that moved her from possible asset to probable ally. Conditional trust. Conditional trust was the only kind that kept people alive in situations like this one. I had learned that lesson early and kept it close ever since. Dr. Sene arrived with the morning rotation, same clipboard, same glasses, same expression of clinical focus that she wore like a second skin. She did not look at me differently, did not signal anything to the room. Went directly to her station and began her morning review like always. 2 hours into the shift, she stood, made a note, walked to my cage and said to the room, "I am relocating Subject 7 to the secondary observation wing." No one questioned it. She was senior enough that routine decisions didn't require explanation. She lifted my cage and carried it through the far door. The far door. The one I had been staring at for 9 days. The one the black pup had gone through and not come back from. I was finally through it. The corridor beyond was longer than I had expected. White walls, same tile, same lighting. Doors on both sides at regular intervals, each with a badge reader. She carried my cage without speaking. Her pace was exactly normal. Nothing in her posture suggested she was doing anything other than routine animal transfer. 12 years of operational experience told me, this is what a professional looks like when they are absolutely terrified and will not show it. We passed 4 doors, stopped at the 5th. She badged in, pushed the door open with her shoulder, carried me inside and set the cage on a table. The room was smaller than the main lab, 1 workstation, 2 filing cabinets. Physical, not digital, which told me something about how old this data was. And along the entire far wall, a server bank with a display terminal that was currently active, currently logged in, currently showing a file directory. 15 years of records, sitting right there. On a screen I could see from inside my cage with eyes that were, functionally, quite good in low light. She positioned the cage at the exact angle that gave me the best sightline to the terminal. Then she turned to the door, checked the corridor, closed it. She sat down at the workstation, opened the file directory, began scrolling slowly, not reading herself. Scrolling at a pace that let me read, I read fast. My memory had always been good. In the field, it had been exceptional. In this body, with nothing else competing for cognitive resources, it was perfect. Subject 1. A wolf recovered from a preserve in the northern region. Anomalous neural patterns detected at week 3. Study phase initiated. Duration 4 months. Outcome non-cooperative. Escalated to extraction protocol. Result neural degradation. Subject did not survive the extraction attempt. Date 15 years ago. I read that and felt the weight of it. Someone had woken up in a wolf body 15 years ago in this exact facility and had not made it out. First, Subject 2. Similar recovery location. Anomalous patterns at week 2. Study phase 6 months. Outcome partial cooperation. Extraction attempted. Partial success. Partial success. I stared at that phrase. What did partial mean in this context? What was extracted? What was left? The file didn't say. The file moved on. Subject 3, 4, 5. Each entry had the same structure. Recovery detection, study phase duration, outcome. The outcomes were never good, not once. By Subject 6, the language had changed slightly, more clinical, more efficient, like whoever was writing the reports had stopped feeling the need to soften it. Subject 7, that entry was short. Recovery location, unknown. Anomalous patterns, immediate, day 1. Study phase, ongoing. Outcome, pending. That was me. Immediate, day 1. She had spotted me within hours of waking up. I had thought I was doing well. I had not been doing as well as I thought. Dr. Sene scrolled past my entry to the section below. A different category of records. Not subjects, personnel. The people who had built this program. The original researcher who had found Subject 1 15 years ago, Dr. Harvin. His entry was brief. Deceased, because listed as laboratory accident. Year 9. Year 9 was 6 years ago. 6 years ago, the man who had started all of this had died in an accident in his own laboratory. I noted the phrasing. Laboratory accident was a phrase I had encountered in fieldwork before. It usually meant something more specific than the words suggested on the surface. The director's entry was longer. Name, Cale Voss. Background in military neuroscience. Recruited to the Institute at year 4. Current status, active senior authority. Military neuroscience. That confirmed the intersection I had identified from the symbols and the facility's structural logic. This was military in its bones. The funding organization entry was brief, but the name it contained made Dr. Senna pause in her scrolling for exactly 1 second before moving past it. I caught the name, filed it, did not react. But that name belonged to a category of organization I had spent years trying to stay ahead of in my old world. The kind of organization that didn't officially exist, operated across multiple governments, and had a track record of making problems disappear efficiently. If an organization like that was funding this program, the scope was larger than one facility, larger than one world, possibly. That changed the scale entirely. Dr. Senna closed the directory, opened a secondary folder. This one was labeled with a code I didn't recognize, but the contents were immediately clear. Procedure logs, detailed records of what had been done to each subject during the study phase, and, for the ones who reached it, the extraction protocol. I read them, carefully, completely. And I will say this. Dr. Senna was right to have spent 3 years building toward the moment she was now executing. What this program did to its subjects was not something I could summarize briefly and stay within the boundaries of what I was willing to put in my memory. I will say, the extraction protocol involved equipment, duration, and a level of disregard for the individual inside the animal that had no clinical justification. And the partial success of Subject 2, I now understood what partial meant. It meant they had gotten what they wanted. It did not mean the subject survived it. The adult wolf in the main lab, the one with the old scars and the glassy eyes and the occasional moment of terrible clarity. I looked at the timeline. Subject 8, in study phase for 11 months, currently in the extended observation category. Medical status, declining. Projected extraction window, 2 to 4 weeks. 2 to 4 weeks. The same window as my 3-week deadline. Whatever was going to happen in this facility was going to happen all at once, to all of us. I sat with that for exactly the time it took Dr. Senna to close the procedure logs and open one final folder. This one was not labeled with a code. It was labeled with a word I recognized from the language she had spoken to me the night before. A word from my world. It meant contingency. Her contingency file. 3 years of preparation in a single folder. She scrolled slowly, let me read everything she had built toward this moment. Contact information for an outside organization. Not the funding body, not governmental. Independent. The kind of group that investigates facilities like this. A complete copy of the subject files, the procedure logs, the personnel records. Everything I had just read, compressed and ready for transmission. A draft communication, addressed to someone named Wren. Short, specific, asking for extraction support at a time and location that were still blank fields. The time and location blanks told me everything I needed to know about why she'd waited 3 years. She had the evidence. She did not have the exit. Getting evidence out of a sealed facility was one problem. Getting people out, getting subjects out of cages, out of tanks, through a building full of staff, was another. That second problem required something the evidence alone could not provide. It required an asset with specific capabilities operating from the inside. It required me, or someone like me, which was why she had been adjusting algorithms and covering neural data and waiting for the right Subject 7 to arrive. I understood the full shape of it now. The plan was real. The evidence was real. The outside contact was real. What was missing was the operational layer. And the operational layer was exactly what 12 years of Black Ops had given me. We were, it turned out, exactly what each other needed. Inconveniently neat. She closed the contingency file, opened a blank document, typed one line. Did you understand all of that? Then she turned the screen toward my cage. I looked at the screen, looked at her, and I nodded once. She exhaled, typed. Then we need to discuss the adult wolf before we run out of time. She told me what she knew about Subject 8. The adult wolf had been here for 11 months. The person inside, she believed there was still a person inside. The neural data had shown persistent anomalous activity for the first 8 months. Then, the extraction pre-protocol had begun, and the data had started degrading. She had been slowing the degradation as much as she could with medication adjustments she had buried in routine veterinary notes. But slowing was not stopping. 2 weeks at most, she said, typed, before the degradation passed the point where communication would be possible, even if we found a way to enable it. 2 weeks. That was inside my 3-week deadline, which meant the adult wolf was actually the hardest constraint in the entire operational timeline. I needed to communicate with Subject 8 before we lost the window, and I needed to do it without alerting the monitoring equipment in the main lab. She typed, I have a way, but it requires moving you back to the main lab tomorrow. and it requires you to do something that will look strange on camera. She then described what she had in mind. It was not elegant. It involved a specific piece of equipment she was going to leave within reach of my cage, and it relied on the adult wolf having enough of themselves left to understand what I was doing and respond in a way that looked like normal animal behavior. It was a plan built from very limited materials by someone who had been working alone for 3 years. It was the best available plan. I nodded. She moved my cage back to the main lab that afternoon. Routine relocation, per her notes. No one questioned it. I was back behind my familiar bars. The adult wolf was in the same position as always. The same measured breathing, the same occasional rigid stillness that wasn't sleep. But it was there. I watched it during the afternoon shift, watched for the moments of focus I had seen before. They came less frequently now. The window was real and it was closing. That night, the first night with the disc and the full knowledge of what I was inside, I did not sleep. I planned, specifically and completely. The extraction had 3 phases. Phase 1, establish communication with Subject 8 and recover whatever intelligence they held about the facility's interior. Phase 2, reach Thomas through a channel Dr. Senna would create, get a message to the outside contact Ren, establish an extraction timeline and entry point. Phase 3, the tanks. The 3 subjects in suspension. Whatever getting them out required, it was non-negotiable. They were coming out, all 3. Each phase had dependencies. Each phase could fail in multiple specific ways I had already identified and built contingencies around during the night hours. The weakest point was Phase 2. Thomas was an unknown quantity. I knew he was collecting data and sending it somewhere. I did not know why or to whom. If his outside contact was aligned with the funding organization rather than opposed to it, using him as a channel would expose the entire operation immediately. That risk had to be accepted, or the plan had no external component and no extraction support, which meant certain death for everyone, including me. I accepted the risk, filed it under necessary variables, moved to the next problem. This was what operational planning looked like. Never clean, always forward. The morning of day 11 brought Dr. Senna's promised equipment adjustment. She approached the main lab's equipment bank during the early shift changeover. In the small motion of her adjusting a cable near my cage, she placed something on the cage floor. Small. Looks like a piece of standard equipment housing. It was a conductive surface. If the adult wolf could press a paw against the corresponding surface on its cage, the circuit would complete a low-frequency pulse. 1 pulse? Yes. 2 pulses? No. 3 pulses. Danger, abort. Simple. Binary. The language of people who cannot afford complex communication in a monitored space. I spent the morning working out how to position myself to use it without the cameras seeing a deliberate action rather than random animal movement. By midday, I had a workable approach. During the period when the camera angle was partially obscured by a researcher moving between stations, I made contact. A single pulse to the adult wolf's cage, sent through the conductive surface, through the cage bars, across the 3 meters of floor between us. Nothing. I waited, watched the adult wolf's breathing, watched for any change in the rigidity of its posture, watched for the focus I had seen before. 5 minutes, 10, nothing. The window between camera obscuring events closed. I returned to my corner and performed, sleeping with total commitment. During the afternoon shift, I tried again. Different timing, different duration on the pulse. 1 clear signal held for exactly 2 seconds, then released. This time something happened. The adult wolf's breathing changed. Not dramatically, just a slight deepening. Then its right paw shifted position on the cage floor. 1 pulse back, faint. Barely registering through the conductive surface, but real, deliberate. Someone in that body had heard me and was answering. I cannot accurately describe what that felt like. A person who had been trapped for 11 months, deteriorating, running out of time, and they were still there, still answering, still present. That small pulse through a piece of repurposed equipment was the most important signal I had received since waking up in this cage. I sent back 2 pulses, waited. They returned 2 pulses. We had established a channel, primitive, limited, but a channel is a channel regardless of bandwidth. Over the next 48 hours, across multiple sessions timed to camera blind spots, I built a vocabulary with the adult wolf using the pulse system. 1 then 3. How many staff in the section beyond the far door? They answered. 2 pulses, pause, 2 pulses. 4. 4 staff in the interior section. 1 then 2. Any other subjects beyond the door besides the black pup? 3 pulses, then 1. Danger signal, then 1. There was something else there. Something they considered dangerous, something they wanted me to know about before I went deeper into the facility. I filed that as critical and kept building. By day 13, I had extracted a functional map of the interior section from the adult wolf's 11 months of observation, through their section of the facility. 2 research wings beyond the main lab, a containment area with heavier security than the outer cages, a room with equipment that the adult wolf pulsed 3 times for. 3 pulses. Danger. That room specifically was dangerous enough that, after 11 months of exposure to everything in this facility, it still warranted that signal. The black pup was in the first research wing, alive, based on what I could determine, still in a cage based on the pattern of staff movement the wolf had tracked. The 3 subjects in the tanks, based on the wolf's intelligence, they were not in the main lab at all. They were in the containment area, deeper still. The operational picture was growing, filling in, taking shape from 2 sources: the archive records and 11 months of trapped observation by someone who had survived. On day 14, Thomas did something unexpected. He came in not early, but late, after the evening shift handover when the monitoring attention was lowest. He went to his station and sat for a long time without doing anything visible. Then he put his head in his hands for exactly 30 seconds, then sat up, took out the personal device, photographed not the screen this time, but the cage area, specifically my cage. He photographed my cage for 3 seconds and put it away. I sat very still and performed sleeping very convincingly and thought, he knows. Not everything, but enough to have made a decision about something. The next morning, Dr. Senna arrived with a note folded inside her clipboard. She passed it to me during the routine water bowl change, slipped through the bars. I unfolded it with my mouth and read it with my face pointing away from the nearest camera, at an angle she had clearly calculated in advance. Thomas had contacted her, not through official channels, through a personal message that meant he had known her outside contact existed. He was the same outside contact. Thomas was Wren. The blank fields in her contingency draft, the name she had been building toward for 3 years, was sitting at a workstation 12 feet from my cage. He had been placed here, not by the facility, by the organization on the other side. He had been inside this building for 8 months, running the same operation she was. 2 people had been working toward the same extraction from opposite directions for nearly a year, and had not known the other was there. That was either very unlucky or very careful. Careful, I decided. Both of them operating in isolation was a security measure, not an accident. If one was exposed, the other remained intact. Standard deep cover logic. What had changed? Thomas had recognized something in my maze performance that had triggered his identification protocol. He now knew Dr. Senna was the inside contact, which meant the external extraction team that Thomas was connected to knew the inside contact had made contact with a subject. The timeline was now in motion. 3 days. Dr. Senna's note ended with that number. The extraction team could be in position in 3 days. The window would be narrow and it would not repeat. 3 days to communicate the full facility layout to the extraction team through Thomas. 3 days to get the adult wolf to a transportable condition. 3 days to locate and reach the 3 suspended subjects in the containment area. 3 days to find the black pup and get it out of the research wing. 3 days to do all of this inside a fully staffed military-adjacent research facility with active monitoring, badge-locked doors, and a director who was out of patience. No problem. Completely manageable. I had done harder things. I was trying to remember one specifically, and the examples were not coming quickly, but I was sure they existed. I ate the note. Literally. It tasted like paper and bad decisions. But it was gone, and it contained nothing that should be found by anyone in a white coat. Day 15. I began the most careful performance of my operational career. Not physical action. I still had no hands and no voice, and nothing had changed there. But through the pulse system, through Dr. Senna's careful screen positioning, through Thomas's photographed data, information started flowing in the right direction. The facility layout from the adult wolf's intelligence, the staff rotation patterns I had memorized, the badge color system, and what each level could access, the location of the 3 subjects in the tanks, the security level of the containment area, the specific room the adult wolf had pulsed 3 times to warn me about. That room. I had been building toward understanding it, and on day 15, Thomas put a piece of information on his screen that gave me the final piece. The room was not research equipment. It was the extraction apparatus, the device they used for the extraction protocol, the thing they did to subjects who were ready. It had been used on Subject 2 9 years ago. It had been used on 3 others after that. It was scheduled for use on Subject 8, the adult wolf, in 12 days. 12 days had become 3 days had become now. The extraction team's arrival window was the only deadline that mattered, and we were running directly toward it. On day 16, the director called a facility-wide staff meeting. This had never happened in the 9 days before the disc, and apparently had not happened in months. Dr. Senna attended. Thomas attended. I sat in my cage and listened to the audio that carried through the wall at a frequency my wolf ears could just barely resolve. The director's voice was tight. Controlled, but tight. The funding body had moved the deadline, not by days, by a week earlier than the end-of-month target. The extraction protocol for Subject 8 was being moved up. The assessment of Subject 7, me, was being accelerated. New oversight visitors were arriving in 2 days. 2 days. The extraction team needed 3. We were now working with a deficit and zero margin for any variable to go wrong in any direction at any time. I heard Dr. Senna return to the main lab after the meeting. She sat at her station, did not look at me, but her hand resting on the desk tapped once, twice, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. The signal we had established through the pulse system adapted. 1, I heard. 2, I understand. 3, we are still going. We are still moving forward. I pressed my paw against the conductive surface and pulsed back. 1, 2, 3. Heard. Understand. Forward. The adult wolf added its faint pulse from across the room. 3 of us, in a facility that held us as numbered assets, sending signals through repurposed equipment while a director moved deadlines and oversight arrived early. I thought about the 11 subjects who had come before me, who had not had a Dr. Sene or a Thomas or a neural masking disc or a plan that had teeth, who had been alone in cages that got quieter and then got used for something terrible and then got cleaned for the next numbered subject to wake up inside. I was not going to be subject 7 in a file entry that ended with the same 2 words as every entry before mine. I was not. That was not a hope, that was a fact. On day 17, 2 things happened that changed the operational picture in ways I had not anticipated and could not have planned for from inside a cage. The first, the black pup came back. Not moved back, brought back in a cage that was now significantly more reinforced than the one it had left in. The golden eyes found mine the moment it was placed in the room, and this time the expression in them was not confident or reckless. It was information. Urgent, specific, targeted information, communicated through eye contact alone by someone who had clearly spent their time in the research wing learning things. I could not read the specific content, but the urgency was unmistakable. Whatever the black pup had seen in the research wing, it had changed the calculus somehow. The second thing, Thomas left his personal device on his workstation when he went to the bathroom. Left it visible, left it unlocked, for exactly 40 seconds. Dr. Seni walked past it, paused to adjust something on a nearby cabinet, and in that pause, her hand moved once across the device in a motion too small to see on camera. She had transferred data to the device, to Thomas, to the extraction team, the full facility map, the staff rotations, the subject locations. Everything we had built, it was done, the information was out, the extraction team had what they needed to plan an entry. We had given them the blueprint from inside the building itself. Now we had 2 days until the oversight arrived, an accelerated timeline for the extraction protocol on the adult wolf, and 1 very urgent black pup with information I needed. The pulse system wouldn't work for complex data transfer, and the black pup's new cage placement was outside its range. I needed a different channel. I looked at the black pup. The golden eyes looked back. We were 2 people in wolf pup bodies with no shared language, no established code, and no available tools. I thought about what I did have: eyes, ear position, head angle, tail position, body language, the entire vocabulary of canine communication that I now lived inside. I was not a trained animal behaviorist, but I had spent 16 days in this body and I knew what these movements looked like from the outside because I had been performing them. I shifted position, oriented myself at a specific angle, held it for a deliberate 3 seconds, then shifted again, then held again. A pattern, not a reflex. The black pup went still, watched me. Then it did something with its own body. A specific ear position combined with a head angle that was not random and was not instinct. We spent the rest of that afternoon building something from nothing. 2 former humans in wolf bodies in a monitored facility, 2 days from either rescue or catastrophe, inventing a language, 1 movement at a time, 1 meaning at a time, watched by cameras that saw only animals engaging in normal social behavior between cage neighbors. By the end of the day, I had the core of what the black pup had seen in the research wing. And what it had seen confirmed the 3-pulse warning from the adult wolf. The room with the extraction apparatus. It was not the only device in that wing. There was a second system, newer, more advanced. Not yet in the personnel files. The black pup had been close enough to observe its operation, had seen what it did, had spent its time in the research wing memorizing every detail of a machine that, based on everything it communicated through our invented language, was not designed for extraction. It was designed for something permanent, something that did not stop. The director wasn't just ahead of schedule. He had upgraded the program while we were planning against the version we knew. The oversight visit wasn't review, it was demonstration. They were going to demonstrate the new system, on a subject, on a timeline that had just moved 2 days earlier than we had any plan to address. I sent 1 pulse to the adult wolf, 3 times. Danger. The wolf pulsed back. 3 times. It already knew. It had known before I did. It had been waiting for me to catch up. 2 days. Extraction team in position in 3. A 1-day gap between what we had and what we needed, with a new system in play that none of our planning had accounted for. I thought about that gap for a long time. about what filled it, about what 12 years of black ops and 16 days in a cage and one neural masking disk added up to. There was one move available in that gap, one thing that could compress the extraction team's timeline by 24 hours if it worked. If, large if, necessary if. Subject 4's file had a line I kept returning to. The study phase notes described increased vocalization in the subject during overnight hours. Crying. Someone had woken up in an animal body in this facility and cried through the nights, while researchers logged it as stress vocalization and moved on with their notes. That detail lived in my memory with more weight than any of the clinical outcome language. It was the most human thing in 15 years of inhuman documentation. I filed it not as intelligence, but as motivation, which, in my experience, is a more durable fuel than anger, more reliable than urgency, and harder to suppress than fear. The pulse conversations with the adult wolf were slow, limited by the binary system and the narrow windows when the camera angles aligned with the equipment placement, but the wolf was efficient with what we had. Every pulse was information, no wasted signals, no uncertainty in the responses. 11 months of patience made precise. I found myself respecting the person in that body with the specific respect reserved for people who have endured something longer than seems possible and remained functional. Whatever they had been before this, whatever world, whatever life, whatever training or lack of it, they had adapted to captivity the way professionals adapt to the field. By stripping everything to what was essential, maintaining what was useful and letting go of everything else without ceremony. That was not easy. That was a choice made daily. When I understood that Thomas was Ren, I spent several minutes running back through everything I had observed about him and reinterpreting it with the correct context. The stress tells I had read as anxiety about his position were not anxiety. They were the controlled tension of someone maintaining deep cover in a hostile environment. The early arrivals, the photographed screens, the personal device, not an uncertain junior researcher with doubts, a trained operative doing exactly what he was supposed to do. I had assessed him correctly as useful and incorrectly as uncertain. The distinction mattered. An uncertain asset needed handling. A trained operative needed coordination. The difference between those two approaches was significant in terms of what I could ask him to do and how quickly. He was more capable than I had budgeted for. Good news. On day 16, I also noticed something in the main lab that I had not registered as significant until the context shifted to make it critical. The monitoring equipment near the adult wolf's cage had been running a continuous low-frequency output for the past 4 days. Not diagnostic. Something else. It was the pre-protocol sequence, the preparation phase that preceded the extraction apparatus being brought online. They had started it already, before the meeting. The director had moved his timeline before he announced it, which meant the announcement had not been the real timeline, which meant the real window was even tighter. I sent 3 pulses to the adult wolf immediately, 3 back. It had known. Of course it had known. It had been living inside the pre-protocol for 4 days. That changed the calculus completely. Not 2 days of margin before the oversight visit. Possibly less. Possibly significantly less. The plan needed to accelerate now. I thought about the 11 subjects in the files and what had happened to each of them, and I thought, not this time. Not this wolf. Not while I have a disk and a plan. The plan was not complete. The extraction team was not in position. The Black Pup's information about the new system had added a variable I had not finished solving. But incomplete plans executed at the right moment beat. Complete plans executed too late by a margin that my field experience had measured in human lives. Move now. I would have to manufacture a crisis inside the facility significant enough to force an emergency response. Something that would bring external attention to this building fast. Something I could create from inside a cage, with paws and no voice and no tools, in a way that didn't get anyone killed before the extraction team arrived. I spent the night working out exactly how. By morning I had it. It was, like all the best plans in impossible situations, completely obvious once I saw it. The neural monitoring equipment. The equipment they used to watch my brain. The equipment I had been suppressing myself against for 16 days. I was going to stop suppressing. I was going to let them see exactly what was in my head. All of it. The full capacity, the years of training, the mission. And I was going to do it in a way that triggered every alarm in the system and forced the director to call in the oversight visitors a full day early, which would give Thomas the emergency window to send the accelerated timeline to the extraction team, which would move their arrival from day 3 to day 2, which would mean the extraction team arrived on the same day as the oversight visitors, which would turn a demonstration into something else entirely. The adult wolf pulsed once from across the room as I finished planning. 1 pulse, agreement. It had followed the logic through the same channels I had. The Black Pup watched me with those golden eyes and did the ear position that had come to mean, I am ready. Whatever comes next, I am ready for it. 3 of us, in cages, sending signals through repurposed equipment and invented body language and the kind of trust that only exists between people who have no other option. Tomorrow, I was going to light up every neural monitor in this facility and blow my cover so completely that the director would have no choice but to move his timeline. And then we were going to see what happened when the people running this facility discovered that their most valuable asset had been running an intelligence operation against them, from inside a cage, with paws and no voice and no hands, for 17 days, against people who had done this for 15 years and thought they had seen everything. If you want to see what happens when I drop the mask, and what the extraction team finds when they finally breach this building, hit continue for part 3. The neural masking disc had given me 17 days of undetected full capacity thinking. Tomorrow, I would use every second of that capacity at once, not to escape, not yet, to force a situation that the extraction team could walk into and use. Creating conditions was mission work. I understood mission work. The director thought he was running an experiment on Subject 7. He was going to discover that Subject 7 had been running an experiment on him the entire time. 17 days of data collection, analysis, personnel mapping, and contingency building, all of it pointed at one objective. Get every subject out of this building alive. The adult wolf, the black pup, the 3 in the tanks, all of them. Not some, not most. Every single person who had woken up in a cage in this facility and deserved better. That was the mission. Not revenge, not exposure, not the satisfaction of watching the director understand what had been happening under his own monitoring equipment. Just get them out. Everything else was secondary. Everything else could happen later from somewhere with better options and functional hands and no white coat in sight. I pressed my paw against the conductive surface one more time before the overnight guards started their rotation. One pulse, steady, held for 3 seconds. The adult wolf answered, one pulse back, steady, held. Still there, still present, still fighting the pre-protocol from the inside. Still in it after 11 months. Tomorrow. I sent that as best I could through the pulse system. The wolf sent back something that felt, across the bars and the wires, like, I know, I will be ready. The morning of day 18 started like every other morning in the Ardent Institute. Fluorescent lights, antiseptic smell, the sound of the early shift badging in. I lay in the corner of my cage and watched the staff arrive with the same blank expression I'd been perfecting for 17 days. Routine, normal, nothing to see. Except today was the day I was going to set everything on fire. Metaphorically, mostly metaphorically. I had not entirely ruled out the literal version, depending on how things went. Dr. Senna arrived at her usual time, clipboard, glasses, the practiced calm of someone who had rehearsed this exact morning in their head until it was muscle memory. She did not look at me. I did not look at her. We were 2 people in the same room who had agreed on something enormous and were now waiting for the moment to begin. Thomas arrived 7 minutes later. He looked exactly like a junior researcher arriving for a normal shift, which was, I now understood, what a trained operative looked like. He sat at his station, opened his monitoring interface, did not touch his personal device, did not photograph anything, just sat and waited with the patience of a professional. 3 people in a room full of white coats and equipment and cameras. 3 people who knew something the room did not know yet. The gap between those 2 states was today. I spent the first hour of the shift watching the neural monitors near my cage. The display that showed my brain activity in real time, the display I'd been suppressing against. With the disc, the display showed calm, clean, animal-level patterns. Gentle waves, nothing remarkable. The brain of a healthy young wolf going about a healthy young wolf's morning. Without the disc, the display would show something very different, something that would trigger the anomaly flags in the system and push an alert to the director's terminal. I'd spent part of the night calculating exactly what level of exposure would trigger the alert without immediately triggering a full containment lockdown simultaneously. Too little, and the system would log it as a glitch and continue. Too much, and the building would go into lockdown before Thomas could send the accelerated timeline. The sweet spot was narrow, show enough to cause alarm, not enough to cause panic. Force the director to call the oversight visitors early. Give Thomas his 20-minute window. 20 minutes was all he needed. He had told Dr. Senni this through a message she had relayed to me through screen positioning that morning during equipment calibration. 20 minutes between the alert triggering and the director arriving in the main lab to assess the situation personally. Standard response time for a senior authority figure. In those 20 minutes, Thomas would send the full accelerated timeline to the extraction team. The team would move their position up by 1 day. The gap would close. That was the plan. Clean in structure, messy in execution, dependent on several variables I could not fully control from inside a cage with no thumbs and no voice. I reached back and touched the disc with my chin. One last contact. Then I shifted my position so that my head was angled toward the neural monitor's sensor array. And I stopped suppressing. Not all at once, gradually, like a valve opening slowly, letting more and more of what was actually in my head reach the surface where the sensors could find it. The display changed. The gentle waves sharpened, became faster, more complex, more structured. The patterns of something that was not an animal thinking animal thoughts. I watched the display from the corner of my eye, watched the moment the anomaly threshold crossed, watched the small red indicator appear in the upper corner of the screen. Anomaly detected. The system had flagged it. The alert was moving through the network toward the director's terminal right now. The clock had started. Thomas saw it. I saw him see it in the micro-adjustment of his posture, the specific stillness that replaces normal movement when a trained person receives expected bad news. His hand moved to his workstation interface. Routine keystrokes, nothing that would read as unusual on any camera. But his personal device was now in his left palm. Dr. Senna did not move, did not react, continued writing in her clipboard with the same pace and pressure she always used. Her performance was extraordinary, genuinely extraordinary. I kept the exposure levels steady, not increasing, not decreasing, holding the anomaly at the threshold that said something is wrong here without saying everything is wrong here. 30 seconds, 1 minute. The alert was propagating. The director would be reading it now, running his own assessment, deciding whether to respond personally or delegate. I needed him to respond personally. A delegated response would bring a junior staff member with limited access to the system override, not enough authority to trigger the visitors. So I increased the exposure slightly, pushed the anomaly from notable to significant, the kind of significant that a director who had been waiting 15 years for results would not delegate. The display spiked, the red indicator intensified. A secondary alert joined the first. The system was now logging what it classified as an unprecedented neural event in Subject 7. Thomas was typing, steady, unhurried, the pace of someone doing routine work. But the content of what he was typing was going somewhere the facility's system would never see. 2 minutes. 3. The door at the far end of the corridor opened. I heard it before it appeared on camera range, the specific sound of a badge reader cycling at high priority. The director entered the main lab with 2 staff members at his back, and the expression of a man who has been waiting for something and believes he is finally seeing it. He walked directly to the neural monitor near my cage, studied the display. His face went through a sequence that I had time to read in full. Recognition, calculation, decision. He turned to Dr. Sen, said something I caught at the edge of my audio range. Contact the oversight team. Tell them to move their arrival to this afternoon. Today. There it was, the exact outcome the plan required. The oversight visitors were moving up by 1 full day. The demonstration was being pulled forward to this afternoon, which meant we had approximately 6 hours. 6 hours from now to when the people with dark blue badges walked into this building expecting to see a controlled demonstration. 6 hours for the extraction team to move into position. 6 hours for Dr. Sene and Thomas to execute the internal component of the plan. 6 hours for everything. I let the exposure drop, pulled the cognitive display back toward animal levels. The anomaly indicators faded, the red flags cleared. The monitor returned to its calm, gentle waves. The director was still watching the display, frowning at the return to baseline, saying something to his staff about recalibration and equipment sensitivity and follow-up assessment. He did not look at me. He looked at the data, because to him, I was the data. Subject 7 was a number in a file with an anomaly flag and a pending outcome. He had no idea that Subject 7 had just deliberately triggered his alert system to move his timeline and was now performing confusion-based animal behavior with full commitment. He left. The door closed. The main lab returned to its normal hum of activity with elevated staff tension that I could read in every set of shoulders in the room. Thomas's hand was no longer holding his personal device. It was back on his workstation where it had always been. The message was sent. The extraction team had their updated timeline. Dr. Senna made a note in her clipboard. To anyone watching, routine documentation. To me, confirmation. Everything was in motion. The plan was running. No going back. I sat in my cage and breathed. In, out. The wolf pup body required oxygen at the same rate it always had, regardless of what its occupant had just set into motion. 6 hours. I began running through everything that needed to happen inside this building before the extraction team made their entry. The list was not short. First, the adult wolf needed to be ready for movement. Whatever the pre-protocol had done to its body over the past 4 days, it needed to be functional enough to move. Dr. Senna had been managing its medical status through the veterinary notes, but managing decline and reversing it were different problems with different tools. Second, the 3 subjects in the tanks in the containment area. Getting them out of suspension required equipment access I did not have and had not yet solved for. Third, the black pup's information about the new system in the research wing. Whatever that machine was built to do, it could not be operational when the extraction team arrived. Fourth, the security on this building. badge locks on every interior door, a camera system that covered most of the corridors, staff throughout the facility on rotating shifts, 4 active problems, 6 hours. 1 former special operations soldier in a wolf body with a disc and 2 allies, and a pulse system made from repurposed equipment. I had worked with less. I was trying to remember when specifically. The examples were still not coming quickly, but I remained confident that they existed somewhere in my history. At hour 1, Dr. Seni made her move on the adult wolf situation. She submitted a medical adjustment order through the veterinary system, routine notation within her authority. The adjustment increased a specific compound in the adult wolf's treatment that the pre-protocol had been suppressing. The compound that supported neural coherence, not a reversal, not enough to undo 11 months of deterioration, but enough potentially to sharpen the windows of clarity we had been communicating through. She walked past the adult wolf's cage during a camera blind spot and placed a second conductive surface on the floor within paw reach. Backup channel, wider bandwidth. I sent to the adult wolf immediately, 3, then 2. Danger acknowledged, new channel ready. The wolf's response came back stronger than anything I had received in 2 days. It was alert. The compound was already working faster than I had expected. Whoever was in that body had been waiting for exactly this kind of window with considerable patience. Over the next 40 minutes, through the expanded pulse vocabulary and the cleaner signal, I transmitted everything the adult wolf needed to know about the extraction plan. Timeline, entry point. Team composition as far as I knew it. The role of Thomas, the role of Dr. Sen, what would happen in the facility in the hours before the team arrived. The wolf's responses were precise. Confirmation pulses for each element. Questions where there were gaps. The communication of someone who had been planning their own exit for months. At the end of the transmission I sent, "Can you move?" The response came after a longer pause than any other. Then 1 pulse. Yes, but the yes felt qualified, conditional. I sent, "How far?" Another pause. Then a sequence I had to interpret. 3 pulses, pause, 2 pulses. To the door. As far as the door. Not further than that. Not on its own. The adult wolf could reach the door of the main lab, not independently navigate the corridors, not without support once outside the lab environment. Noted. Planned around. At hour 2, the black pup initiated contact through the body language system we had built the day before. The urgency in its posture was calibrated and specific. The new machine in the research wing? It had more information. Information it had been holding because the earlier transmission had reached the limit of what our system could carry. We spent 20 minutes on the information transfer. The black pup was meticulous, patient, repeating signals when I indicated uncertainty. A very different operational style than day 1. Whoever was in that black pup had done some significant recalibrating since the maze incident. The recklessness was gone. What replaced it was the focus of someone who understood stakes. The new machine. It was not yet fully operational. 3 of its components were installed. A 4th was scheduled for delivery with the oversight visitors this afternoon. Without the 4th component, the machine could not complete its primary function, which meant the oversight demonstration was partly a delivery. The visitors were bringing the piece. If the extraction happened before the 4th component was installed, before the visitors arrived with it, the machine could not be used on anyone. Not today, not without delay. That changed the calculus significantly. We did not need to disable the machine. We needed to execute the extraction before the visitors got through the door, before delivery, which meant the 6-hour window was not the constraint. The visitors' arrival time was the constraint. And based on what the director had said to Dr. Seni, this afternoon in a facility operating on a 6-hour rotation meant somewhere between the 2nd and 4th hour of the current shift, we were already inside that window. I pushed 3 pulses through to the adult wolf, emergency compress. The wolf pushed back, acknowledged. Then to Dr. Senna through the screen positioning channel. Move it up. She was at her workstation. She did not react visibly, but 30 seconds later, she stood and walked to a supply cabinet near the far wall and spent 90 seconds inside it. When she came back to her station, her clipboard had something new in it. A folded piece of paper that she walked past Thomas's station and left on the edge of his keyboard. Thomas picked it up, read it. Did not change expression. Put it in his pocket. Typed 1 line on his workstation interface and then continued working as if nothing had occurred. 1 line, sent through a channel the facility's system would never access. The extraction team had a new timeline, not 6 hours. As soon as possible. Right now, if possible. The response came back through Thomas's device 9 minutes later. He read it at his station with his body angled, so only I, from my specific cage position, could see his face. He allowed himself exactly 1 second of an expression that I recognized from years of mission work. The expression that means the team is already inside the perimeter. They were already here. They had been moving when he sent the first message. The extraction team had not waited for the 3-day timeline. They had been in motion since day 1, since the moment Thomas had first photographed the screen and sent the data out. since before Dr. Senna had ever put the disc through the bars of my cage, they were already here. I sat with that for a moment. Then I sat with the specific feeling of being the last person to know the most important piece of information in your own operation. A very familiar feeling. It meant the plan was not what I thought it was. The plan I had been building for 17 days was real and was running. But it was running inside a larger plan I had not seen. Dr. Senna had not been waiting 3 years for the right Subject 7 to arrive. She had been waiting for the right moment in a timeline that someone else was running from outside. Thomas was not a deep cover operative who happened to be placed here 8 months ago. He was the advanced element of an extraction operation that had been planned before I woke up. I was not the architect of this extraction. I was the trigger, the asset whose demonstrated intelligence would force the director to call the oversight visitors early and compress the window. Everything I had done, the maze, the wink, the neural exposure this morning, had been exactly what someone had planned for me to do without me knowing I was executing a plan. I should have been angry about that. Operationally, I understood it. You do not brief an asset on a plan they might not survive long enough to keep secret. Standard protocol. But I was not angry. I was something closer to impressed. Someone had planned this with enough precision to account for a Subject 7 who would run their own intelligence operation, who would identify the disk as real, the pulse system as viable, Thomas as an asset, and the neural exposure as the correct forcing function. All of it anticipated, all of it planned for. That level of operational planning required information I could not account for. Information about me specifically, about who I was before I woke up in this cage, about what I could do. I would think about the implications of that later. Right now, the extraction team was inside the perimeter. The oversight visitors were en route, and the window was measured in minutes. Thomas stood up from his workstation, stretched, said something to a nearby researcher about a calibration check in the secondary equipment room. Routine, unremarkable. He left the main lab. The door closed behind him. He did not return in 5 minutes, did not return in 10. Nobody in the lab noticed. Nobody looked up. He was just a junior researcher. At minute 12, 3 things happened in rapid sequence, and the careful, controlled pace of the morning became something else entirely. The building's security system emitted a single low tone, not an alarm, a notification. The kind that meant external access had been detected at a non-primary entry point. One of the staff members looked up from their station, said something to the room. Dr. Senna stood from her chair with the specific movement of someone executing a prepared action, and the lights in the main lab went out. Not gradually, instantly. Full dark except for the blue glow of the equipment displays and the red standby indicators on the cage locks. In the dark, Dr. Senna moved. I heard her cross the lab in 12 steps. I'd counted the distance weeks ago, and the sound of a physical key in the adult wolf's cage lock. Physical key. Not badge, not electronic. A physical key she had obtained at some point during 3 years of working in this building. The kind of redundancy that saves operations. The cage door opened. A sound from the adult wolf, not a vocalization. The sound of a large animal that has been mostly still for months, making the effort to move. Dr. Senna was beside me next, the same physical key in my lock. The door swung open, and the air of the main lab hit my face without bars between us for the first time. I was out of the cage, standing on the lab floor on 4 paws with the disc still tucked in my fur and 17 days of intelligence in my head and a mission finally in motion. The black pup's cage was the third. Dr. Senna had the door open in seconds. The golden eyes caught the blue glow of the equipment, and I saw the black pup stand and step out. 3 of us, on the lab floor, in the dark. The adult wolf moving with the careful, deliberate effort of something that had been still too long. The black pup steady and alert. Dr. Senna spoke quietly. 1 sentence. In the language from my world, directed at me, the containment area is unlocked. Thomas opened it from the security panel before he left. The 3 subjects in the tanks. The path was open, the window was now. Everything I had planned and everything that had been planned around me was converging in this dark room. I looked at the adult wolf, 1 pulse against the floor, my paw, direct contact. The wolf's response, 1 back, moving, ready as 11 months and a pre-protocol allowed. I looked at the black pup, the ear position that meant, I know, the head angle that meant, let's go. Whoever was in that body had been ready since long before I was. Dr. Senna moved to the far door, the door that led deeper into the facility, toward the research wing, toward the containment area with the tanks and the 3 people inside them. She badged it open. The corridor beyond was dark like the lab. The power interruption had taken most of the lighting on this level. The equipment displays cast pale blue on the walls. We moved. The adult wolf was slow, but it was moving. Dr. Senna stayed close to it. I ran the corridor ahead. My new body was fast in ways I was still discovering. Checking angles. First door on the right. Research wing. The black pup stopped at it, pressed its nose to the gap at the bottom, then looked at me with the ear position that meant the machine. The fourth component had not arrived yet. The machine in the research wing was incomplete, but incomplete was not the same as harmless, and the black pup knew it, and so did I. I looked at the door, looked at Dr. Senna, made a decision that was not in any version of the plan. I pushed through the research wing door and went in alone. The research wing was one long room with equipment along both walls and a central table that held the new machine in its current 3-component state. Cables and casings everywhere. I did not know exactly what the machine did in its incomplete form, but I knew what the fourth component would enable, and I knew what stopping that looked like from a field perspective. You find the critical connection, the piece that everything else flows through, and you remove it. Not dramatically, not destructively, just remove it. Make this machine not a machine. I found it in 40 seconds. A specific coupling between two of the installed components. The kind of connection that, without it, the other pieces were just expensive separate objects. I bit through it. My wolf pup teeth were not designed for this, and the material was not soft, and it took 3 attempts, and it tasted terrible, but it separated. The coupling was gone. The machine was now 3 expensive separate objects waiting for a fourth component that would never complete it because the internal connection it needed no longer existed. I left the research wing, rejoined the group in the corridor. The black pup looked at me, then at the door I had come through, then back at me. The ear position meant, good. The adult wolf had made it to the second door. Dr. Senna had it open. Beyond was the containment area, a larger space, heavier construction, the kind of room built to keep things in. 3 tanks along the left wall, cylindrical, pale blue liquid, the shapes inside them visible in the glow of the tank's own lighting system that had not gone out with the building power. The people in those tanks were still suspended, still waiting. Whatever getting them out required, Dr. Senna was already at the first tank's control panel working through the sequence. Emergency suspension release protocol, she said to herself. Not to me, to the process. The way someone talks through a procedure they have memorized but never executed before now. The first tank began to drain, the liquid level dropped, the shape inside shifted, then moved, then the tank's front panel released and a figure came forward, gasping, alive, human, or human adjacent, or someone who had been human in another life and was now something shaped like a person after a long time in a tank. They were alive and they were out. Second tank. Third. Dr. Senna working through each one with the focused speed of someone who knows they have minutes and is using every second of every one of them carefully. 3 people on the containment area floor, alive, disoriented, looking at a wolf pup and a black pup and an adult silver wolf with expressions that were hard to categorize. I understood those expressions. I had worn one exactly like them when I first opened my eyes in a cage under fluorescent lights and found I had paws instead of hands. The building shook. Not an explosion. A controlled structural event, the kind that comes from a team breaching a specific entry point with specific tools. The extraction team was in. Somewhere above us in this building, Thomas had opened a door or a panel or a system, and the people on the other side had come through it with everything required for what came next. Dr. Senna looked at the ceiling when the building shook, let out a breath, then looked at me with an expression I did not have a clean category for, but recognized anyway. Relief? The specific relief of someone who has been carrying something enormous for 3 years and has just, for the first time, felt another set of hands take some of the weight. The 3 people from the tanks were upright now, unsteady but functional. Dr. Sene spoke to them quietly, quickly, in a language I did not know. They responded. They understood. One of them, tallest, steadiest, looked at the adult wolf for a long moment, then knelt down to eye level with it, said something soft. The adult wolf pressed its head forward once. Recognition. They knew each other. 2 people who had been in this facility at the same time in different bodies in different kinds of captivity, meeting again in a dark room. I filed that for later. Everything was for later. Right now, move. Get everyone to the extraction point. Get out of this building before the director arrived with whatever response he had prepared. Because the director was coming. The power interruption, the security notification, the extraction team's entry. He knew something was happening, and he would be coming to stop it. I had 17 days of intelligence on this facility and its personnel. I had one very specific piece of that intelligence that applied to right now. I knew his route. Every time the director had moved through this building in response to an event, he had taken the same path. Habit. The kind that forms in people who have never had reason to vary it. The same path that, if we moved now, we would intersect with. The same path that, if we moved in the next 90 seconds, we would have already cleared before he reached it. I moved. Through the containment door, back into the corridor, heading for the extraction point Dr. Sini had transmitted to me through the screen positioning sessions. Behind me, the adult wolf, slower but moving. The black pup, pace matched to the group. Dr. Sine with the 3 tank subjects. 7 individuals leaving this building together, all the numbered subjects still standing, all of them moving. The file that ended with Subject 7 was going to have a different kind of outcome than the 11 before it. The corridor intersection ahead was clear. I checked it, cleared it, moved through. 90 seconds. We had made the window. The director's route was behind us now, not ahead. The extraction point was a service access at the building's north foundation, a point Thomas had identified 8 months ago and prepared during maintenance window access. It was open. The team had it open. And standing in the frame of that access point, backlit by whatever was outside this building, was a figure I did not recognize. Tall, dark jacket, the bearing of someone who had been in worse situations than this one and had found them manageable, looking at our group with an expression I could read clearly. Counting. They were counting the subjects, making sure the number matched what the intelligence had said. Then they nodded once and stepped aside and said, "Move, all of you, now." We moved. The adult wolf crossed the threshold first, helped by 2 team members who were clearly prepared for exactly this. The black pup next. The 3 tank subjects, Dr. Senna. I was last. The last Subject 7 to leave the Ardent Institute. I stopped in the doorway for exactly 1 second and looked back at the dark corridor and the blue glowing equipment. 15 years of subjects. 11 people in files, 3 in tanks who were now outside breathing different air. 1 adult wolf who had survived 11 months of a pre-protocol, 1 black pup who had gathered intelligence from inside the research wing and helped invent a language from scratch in an afternoon, 1 former special operations soldier in a pup body, and 1 scientist who had stayed 3 years in a place that cost her everything it costs, because she had decided that staying was the only way to make sure it eventually stopped. I stepped through. The door closed behind me. The air outside was cold and real and nothing like antiseptic, and I breathed it in fully for the first time in 18 days. The figure in the dark jacket was already moving the group away from the building. Efficient, practiced, the pace of someone who had extracted people from difficult places before. I kept up without difficulty. The wolf pup body, it turned out, was built for exactly this kind of movement across uneven terrain in low light, with urgency as the primary input. Behind us, the building remained dark. No alarm, no pursuit. Not yet. The director had not yet reached the containment area, had not yet understood the full scope of what had happened. When he did, the response would be significant. But by the time it was significant, we would be somewhere that significant responses could not reach. That was the plan. That was working. The tall figure in the dark jacket moved beside me as we cleared the facility's outer perimeter, looked down at me, said 1 sentence in a language I recognized from a life ago. "Good work, Kale. We'll explain everything once you're clear." I looked up at them, at a person who knew my name, my actual name, not Subject 7, Kyle. My name. Someone had sent me here on purpose. Someone who had known I would end up in a cage in a building they were already planning to extract. Someone who had needed exactly me. The anomaly indicators on the monitor were not subtle. They were exactly as alarming as I had calibrated them to be. A signature the system had never seen and logged immediately. 15 years of animal subjects in this facility, and not one of them had ever produced a reading like this. The system had no category for it, so it created an emergency one. I held the exposure at that level with the specific effort of someone maintaining a position under pressure, not letting it spike, not letting it drop, holding the exact line. It required more cognitive control than almost anything I had done in my operational career. Performing stupidity was one thing, performing partial intelligence on demand was another, but I had spent 17 days practicing cognitive control in this body. I knew where the levers were. I knew how hard to push and when to ease off and what the monitors would show. The thing about realizing you have been inside someone else's plan without knowing it is that there are 2 ways to respond. Professionally or personally. Professionally, reassess the asset relationship, verify the alignment of objectives, continue executing the current phase while updating the threat model with new variables. Personally, feel a very specific kind of irritation that comes from being the last person in a room to understand what room you're actually in. I felt both simultaneously. But the professional response had to win. It always had to win. That was what 12 years of field work had cost me and also what it had given me, the discipline to make it win. The external organization had planned this extraction with precision that required foreknowledge of me specifically. That was a problem I would solve after I was out of the building. The corridor was not empty in the way an empty corridor is empty in a building that is fully operational. It was empty in the way that means everyone who should be here has been moved. Thomas had done something to the staff rotation before he left the lab, something that created a gap in coverage along our route. Another piece of preparation I had not seen. The plan I thought I was running was a subset of a plan that had more layers than I had counted. I was running in a tunnel, and the tunnel was built by someone else, moving forward. The adult wolf's breathing was labored but controlled. It was making the same calculation I had made at the start. Whatever the body costs, the mission runs. Keep moving, forward. I stayed close to the adult wolf's flank, not for its protection. It did not need my protection. For something less tactical. The company of another person who understood this, understood what it was to wake up in a body that was not yours, to perform an existence that was not your existence, to run a mission with no backup in a building built to hold you. When the first tank subject stepped forward, I saw something in their face that stopped me for exactly 1 second, even though stopping was the wrong operational choice. They were looking at the lab ceiling, at the fluorescent panels that were dark tonight, but which they had presumably been looking at from inside blue liquid for months or longer. Looking at it the way you look at something that has been above you for so long, it has become part of your internal landscape. Then looking away from it with the deliberate finality of done. The second subject could not stand immediately. Team members were already there. They had been briefed on this, prepared for this, moving with the practiced efficiency of ready. The third subject stood on their own, looked around the containment area with the flat assessment gaze of someone cataloging an environment they have been studying for a long time. Then they looked at me, at the wolf pup. With an expression that said they understood exactly what they were looking at, and found it neither surprising nor particularly strange. Another one, they said, in a language I recognized. Then they nodded once at me, like an acknowledgement between professionals. I nodded back. We moved. There was time for more later. The structural event when the extraction team breached was small by building standards. Large by the standards of what it meant. It meant the outside was now the inside. The careful separation between the facility and the world beyond it, the thing that had made this building a sealed container for 15 years, had just become a door. I had spent 18 days looking at every door in this place as a barrier, watching badge readers, memorizing lock sounds. Now the team had opened the one that mattered. Dr. Senna did not hesitate when the building shook. She was already at the third tank, already moving. 3 years of preparation did not leave room for hesitation at the moment. That was the thing about people who had been planning in isolation for a long time. When the plan finally ran, they ran with it completely. No second guessing, just execution. The outside air hit me before I crossed the threshold, coming under the door frame, cold and real and carrying the smell of something living that was not antiseptic. I had been breathing recycled lab air for 18 days. The outside air in comparison was so complex it was almost overwhelming. My wolf nose found approximately 40 things in it. Cold ground, distant water, something green and living, the chemical trace of the extraction team's equipment. And underneath all of it, something I did not have a name for. The smell of a world I did not know yet. That I had been inside for 18 days without once experiencing anything outside the lab environment, and the cage and the blue glow. A whole world that I had arrived in without context, without a map, without knowing the rules or the power structures or what I was supposed to become inside it. A world that someone had sent me to deliberately. For reasons I was going to understand fully in the next few hours when the tall figure in the dark jacket started talking. I stepped through the threshold. The door closed. And 18 days of the Ardent Institute were behind me, with finality that felt, in the cold air, exactly like what it was. I had 17 days of questions that needed answers. About this world. About who had done this and why. About the disc and the plan and the name they had just used without hesitation. But I was outside. The building was behind me. Every subject was moving and alive and out. The mission was accomplished in the operational sense that the primary objectives were met. The questions could wait 3 minutes. Everything could wait 3 minutes. I ran through the dark alongside 7 people who had all been in cages this morning, and I thought, whatever comes next, whatever the explanation is, whatever the larger plan turns out to be, I am going to need hands. Someone in this extraction team needs to fix that. The facility disappeared into the darkness behind us. The Ardent Institute, and its 15 years of files, and its director, and its pre-protocol, and its machine with a missing coupling. Somewhere back there, a man named Cale Voss was walking into a dark containment area and finding 3 empty tanks and 3 open cages, and 1 research wing with a broken machine. I would have liked to see his face in that moment. I did not get to, but I had the next best thing. The knowledge that whatever expression crossed it, he had earned it completely. We cleared the outer perimeter. The extraction team's vehicles were ahead. The cold air was real and constant, and nothing was going to make me take it for granted again. 18 days, a wolf pup body. No hands, no voice, no backup. 1 disc, 2 allies, a pulse system, an invented language, and 17 days of intelligence nobody had asked me to collect. The tall figure opened a vehicle door. The group loaded in. The adult wolf settled against my side with the weight of something that had been fighting for a long time and could rest now. The black pup pressed against my other side. The golden eyes were calm in a way they had not been since I first saw them through the bars of adjacent cages in the main lab. Whatever came next, the explanations, the larger plan, the world outside this vehicle that I had not seen in 18 days, it was coming, and I was ready for it. Almost. I was almost ready for it. First, I needed to sleep for approximately 100 years. Then, I would be ready for absolutely everything. Part 4 drops next. What I found out about why I was sent here, and what the organization behind this actually wanted from me, changes everything you thought you knew. The vehicle moved through the dark with the quiet efficiency of something that had been built specifically for not being noticed. No lights, no sound beyond the engine. 8 of us inside, 7 subjects and 1 scientist, plus 3 team members up front who communicated in short bursts and did not offer names or explanations without being asked. The adult wolf was pressed against my left side, the black pup against my right, both of them breathing the outside air with the particular attention of people who had earned it. The 3 tank subjects sat across from us. The tall one, who had nodded at me in the containment area, watched the road through the dark window with calm, systematic attention. Dr. Senna sat near the front of the vehicle with her clipboard still in her hands. She had carried it out of the Ardent Institute under one arm while opening tank controls with the other. I noted that. A person who grabs their clipboard when evacuating a building is either extremely habitual, or the clipboard contains something they absolutely cannot leave behind. Based on 3 weeks of watching Dr. Sen, I was confident it was the second one, which meant the contingency file was on that clipboard and the contingency file was now outside the building. The tall figure in the dark jacket was in the front passenger seat. They had not spoken since calling me Kale at the extraction point. They were waiting. For what? I was about to learn. 20 minutes into the drive, the vehicle stopped. An old structure, agricultural by its silhouette, far enough from the facility that the distance itself was a form of safety. Inside, prepared, not hastily. The kind of prepared that takes weeks and involves specific choices about sightlines and exits and the placement of every object in the space. Someone had been setting this location up for as long as Thomas had been inside the Ardent Institute. 8 months of preparation for a night that had just happened. The team members helped the tank subjects to prepared resting areas. Dr. Senna set her clipboard on a table and did not pick it up again. The adult wolf found a corner and settled. The black pup stayed close to me. I understood that. When you have spent weeks communicating through invented language and pulse systems, proximity feels like the natural continuation. Thomas was already here. He had arrived before us, which meant he had exited the building through a different route entirely, which meant the plan had more branches than I had counted. He looked tired. The specific tired of someone who has been maintaining deep cover for 8 months and has just watched the thing they were maintaining cover for actually happen. The tall figure turned to face me, sat down across from where I was standing on a cleared floor area, made no move to look away or talk above me. Eye level, direct. "My name is Varen," they said, in the language I recognized. "And before you ask everything you're clearly about to ask, let me tell you what I am able to tell you now." I sat, or rather, I performed sitting, which in a wolf pup body means arranging 4 legs in a way that communicates intent to remain stationary. I was listening. "You were sent here," Varen said, "not by accident, not by a random cosmic mechanism or a glitch in whatever process governs what happens to consciousness after the body stops. You were selected, assessed, and placed in that facility, in that body, at that specific moment in the Ardent Institute's operational timeline, by us. I had known this was coming since the moment they said my name outside the building. Knowing something is coming does not fully prepare you for hearing it said plainly. Us, I thought. I could not say it. Still had no voice, still had paws, still had the disc in my fur and no hands to remove it, and a very long list of things I wanted to say. Varen seemed to understand this. They had clearly done versions of this conversation before. They knew what the person on the other end of it needed and what order. The organization I work for, they said, has been monitoring the Ardent Institute for 11 years. Since Subject 3, since we first understood what the program was doing. We have been building toward an extraction for 7 of those 11 years. The evidence Dr. Sene collected, the inside access Thomas established, the external team's preparation, all of it was building toward a moment when we had everything we needed to execute a clean extraction. All subjects, no casualties, complete evidence for what comes after. What stopped us for 7 years was the inside component. We needed an asset who could operate in the facility without detection, who could adapt quickly to an unknown situation, who could gather intelligence from inside a monitored environment, identify and develop allied assets, and force the operational timeline when the moment required it. I processed this. The specific quality of being described as a solution to a problem you did not know existed before waking up in a cage is a particular kind of experience. You were not the first person we placed, Varen said. 2 before you, different facilities, different programs. Neither reached the operational threshold we needed. They are both safe. Safe. That word landed differently than any other word in the sentence. 2 people who had been placed the way I had been placed, and had not made it to the operational threshold. And they were safe, which meant the organization had retrieved them, which meant being placed in an animal body in a hostile facility was, in this organization's view, a manageable risk. I had strong feelings about that framing, which I would express in full at the earliest opportunity that I possessed a functioning voice. For now, listening. Why me, specifically? Varen said, answering the question I could not ask. Because of what you did. In your previous life. The specific combination of skills and instincts. The ability to operate without backup. To build intelligence from minimal resources. To make sound decisions under time pressure with incomplete information and no clear extraction route. And, Varen added with what I interpreted as a slight pause that contained something honest, because you died in a way that left your consciousness available for placement. Available for placement. That was one way to describe being trank-darted in a mountain range during a mission that went wrong because someone sold out my team. I wanted to ask who. I wanted to ask if the sellout had been found. I wanted to ask a significant number of things that were not the most important questions in the room right now. The most important question was, what comes next? Not what happened. Not why. What comes next? For the 7 of us who had just left a building we were not supposed to leave. Varen answered it before I could find a way to signal it. What comes next is the hard part, they said. The extraction was the beginning, not the end. The Ardent Institute is one facility. The funding organization behind it operates 12, across 4 countries, 2 of which are not on any map your previous world would recognize. 12 facilities. The number settled into my operational framework with the weight of a mission scope expanding far beyond the original briefing parameters. Dr. Senna's contingency file, Varen continued, contains the evidence for one facility, enough to expose the program publicly, enough to create significant institutional pressure. But institutional pressure against an organization that officially does not exist requires a specific kind of delivery, and a specific kind of person to deliver it. The 3 subjects from the tanks, Varen said. Look at them. I looked. The tall one was watching me. The second was eating something warm that a team member had provided. The third was writing. On a pad of paper with a physical pen, writing with the focused speed of someone who has been composing something in their head for a very long time. Each of them, Varen said, came from a different previous life, different skills, different operational backgrounds, different kinds of knowledge about different things. One of them, Varen said, nodding at the tall one, was a senior official in an intergovernmental oversight body, before their placement, before the Ardent Institute. The second was a journalist, specifically the kind of journalist who specialized in exactly the category of story that the Ardent Institute represented. Before. The third, Varen said, looking at the one who was writing, was a legal architect, someone who had spent decades building the specific frameworks used to hold organizations accountable. 3 people, 3 precise skill sets, placed in this facility by this organization because their specific knowledge was required for what comes after the extraction. The evidence from Dr. Senna's file needed to be delivered by an official with standing, published by a journalist with the right platform and the right protections, and the legal architecture of what came after, the accountability structures, the proceedings, the framework that would make sure this could not simply be rebuilt quietly elsewhere, that required someone who had built those frameworks before and understood every way they could be circumvented, and had closed every one of those ways in advance. I looked at the 3 tank subjects with a completely revised understanding of why they had been in those tanks specifically. Not random, never random, each one chosen. And subject 8, Varen said, the adult wolf. I looked at the silver-gray shape resting in the corner with the careful stillness of something that needed to rest and knew it. Subject 8 was a doctor, Varen said. A specific kind of doctor who had spent a career studying exactly the physiological and neurological effects of what the Ardent Institute's program did. Their testimony, their clinical expertise, their first-hand experience as a subject, that was the medical component of the case. The piece that turned evidence into undeniable record. And the black pup, I thought. I looked at the golden eyes. The golden eyes looked back with a specific expression that had become, over weeks of invented language, readable to me. The black pup, Varen said, was a programmer. Specifically, someone who had spent a career building the kind of secure communication infrastructure that this organization now needed. Needed to coordinate across 12 facilities, needed to move evidence without interception, needed to connect people in this room to people in other rooms in other countries safely. I stared at the black pup. The black pup looked back at me with the ear position that, in our invented language, had come to mean, yes, I know all of this already. Of course, the one who had shown off on day 1 and made me want to shake them had known what they were doing, had been performing recklessness to attract specific attention, had been moved to the research wing deliberately, had spent their time there gathering intelligence about the new machine that we had then used to time the extraction to the minute. The recklessness was not recklessness. It was tradecraft I had not recognized because it was operating on a timeline and a plan I did not have access to. Humbling. Noted. And you, Varen said, Subject 7, Kyle Dren, Former Special Operations. 12 years, 41 missions. The operational layer that everything else required. The one who would run the intelligence gathering inside the facility, identify the Allied assets, develop the communication systems, force the timeline at the critical moment. The one who could look at a room with no resources and build a plan from whatever was in it. The one who could adapt an operation in real time when new information arrived. You are, Vern said, what connects all the other pieces and makes them move together. That is what we needed. That is why it was you. I sat with that for longer than I had sat with anything since waking up in the cage. Not because it was surprising, because it was the kind of responsibility that deserved a moment. 7 people in this room, 7 people who had been in cages and tanks and situations designed to use them as tools, now sitting in a prepared location, building something else, something that pointed in the opposite direction from what the Ardent Institute had been building for 15 years. Same starting material, completely different architecture. I had one very immediate question that was more important than any of the strategic ones. I looked at Varen and made the specific motion that our invented vocabulary covered for question. Varen understood. Of course, Varen understood. They had clearly studied me for long enough to know my communication system before I had invented it. How does this work? The bodies, Varen said. Yes. They were already ahead of me. We have a reversal protocol, developed over the past 4 years based on what we learned from the placed operatives. It is not immediate, Varen said. It takes time and it requires specific conditions, and it is not without risk. But it works. The 2 placed before you are both back in their original forms. I looked at the adult wolf, at the black pup, at the 3 tank subjects who had been in suspension for months in forms I had not yet learned. Varen followed my gaze. All of them, Varen said. Everyone in this room who needs it. That is also part of what comes next. We do not ask people to do what you did and leave them in the form they did it in. That mattered. It mattered more than the strategic briefing and the organizational scope and the 12 facilities and everything that came after. It mattered first. I nodded. One nod. The kind that means, I understand and I am in, and I do not need more convincing because the thing I needed to know, I now know, and it is enough. Varen nodded back. Then they looked at the room. At all of us. At 7 people who had spent varying amounts of time in a facility that had tried to turn them into numbered assets. We have work to do, Varen said. A lot of it. And most of it is going to be harder than what you did in the last 18 days. I need to know if you are ready for that. I looked at the adult wolf. The wolf raised its head from its resting position, looked back, one small, deliberate motion of its head, the motion of a person who has been ready for months. I looked at the black pup. The golden eyes held the ear position that had become our word for yes. Not the hesitant yes of someone agreeing because they have no choice. The yes of someone who has spent weeks building toward exactly this moment and finds, now that it has arrived, that they are exactly where they intended to be. I looked at Dr. Senna. She had not picked up her clipboard again. She was looking at the room with the expression of someone who has just set down something very heavy. She caught my look, and she did something I had not seen from her in 3 weeks of watching her face across a cage. She smiled. Small, real, the kind that costs something. I looked at the 3 tank subjects, the tall official, the journalist, the legal architect. 3 people who had been waiting in suspension for this specific room to exist. The tall one met my gaze and gave me the professional nod again. The journalist was already pulling the pad from the writer's hands and beginning to read. The architect kept writing, and I looked at Thomas, who had been in a building for 8 months maintaining cover and photographing screens and building toward a night he could not predict the exact shape of. He caught my look and shrugged. One shoulder, the shrug of someone who had been in the job long enough to find the situation moderately interesting rather than completely overwhelming. I turned back to Varen, and I communicated the only response that was true and complete and accurate, given everything I had just been told and everything I had just understood. I pressed both front paws forward on the floor, extended, the closest approximation available to me in this body of leaning forward across a table and saying, "Tell me the plan." Varen looked at the posture for a moment, read it accurately, then settled back in their chair and began with the kind of directness that had clearly become their default. The plan had 4 components. The first was the evidence delivery. Dr. Senna's file, transmitted through secure channels, the Black Pup's programmer background would help establish. The second was the public record. The journalist's account, the official statement, the medical testimony of the adult wolf's doctor, assembled into something that could not be buried. The third was the legal framework, the architect's work, already partially complete based on what they had been composing in that tank for however many months they had been there. The fourth was the other 11 facilities, the ones the evidence from this extraction would not reach directly, the ones that needed their own version of what had just happened here. 11 facilities. Varen looked at me when they said that number. I understood the look, The operational layer that connected all the other pieces, the one who could adapt in real time. 11 more. I thought about that, about the subjects in those facilities who had woken up in cages and did not have a Dr. Seni adjusting their neural data, or a Thomas with a device, who were sitting in the dark running intelligence operations with no backup, against the clock, with no plan coming from outside because the outside did not know they were there yet, the way I had been sitting, except without the disc, without the pulse system, without the black pup in the adjacent cage with the golden eyes and the useful recklessness, without any of the things that had made the difference between Subject 7 ending differently than Subjects 1 through 6. They deserved those things, all of them. Now, I pressed my paws forward again, the lean, the yes. Vern saw it and did not look surprised. They had assessed me correctly. They had always assessed me correctly. That was the job. The work would start in the morning. The reversal protocol for the most critical cases would begin first. The evidence transmission would run in parallel through the Black Pups systems. Dr. Senna would begin her debrief. Everything she knew about the organization structure, the funding chains, the personnel, the other facilities she had learned existed during 3 years. Thomas would establish the external communication infrastructure that would connect everyone in this room to the people in other rooms in other countries doing other versions of this. And I would begin the operational planning for the 11 remaining facilities, with input from everyone here who had information relevant to each one, systematically, completely. That was tomorrow. Tonight was the adult wolf resting in a corner with the weight of 11 months finally allowed to be heavy without consequence. Tonight was earned rest. Tonight was the black pup pressed against my side in a way that meant something slightly different from companionship and slightly different from gratitude, and was probably both. Tonight was Dr. Seni sitting in a chair without her clipboard for the first time in 3 years and looking at a wall with the expression of someone recalibrating what normal means. Tonight was Thomas drinking something hot and staring at the middle distance with the flat recovering expression of a professional who has just run very hard and is now allowed to stop. Tonight was 3 people from tanks sleeping for the first time in a real bed in however long it had been. The journalist was still writing. Of course the journalist was still writing. And tonight was me, in a wolf pup body in a prepared safe house in a world I did not know yet, with no hands and no voice, and a disc in my fur and 17 days of a story. 17 days that had started with a cage and a bowl of water and a blanket that smelled like it had never been washed and an ear scratch that my body had enjoyed without my permission. 17 days of performing stupidity with full commitment while running a one-wolf intelligence operation against a 15-year-old program with a military backbone and a funding body. 17 days of pulse systems and invented languages and neural masking and archive rooms and a research wing machine that now had one less coupling than it was designed to need. And at the end of those 17 days, everyone who had been in a cage was outside. Everyone who had been in a tank was breathing. Everyone who had been numbered was named, not by the outcome they had been building toward for 15 years, by the outcome we had been building toward in 3 weeks and 1 night with repurposed equipment and paws. I thought about the file entries, subject 1 through 11, the ones who had come before me in this facility and had not made it to this room, who had not had what I had. They would be part of the record. Their names, if the archive contained them. Their stories, as much as could be reconstructed from the clinical language that had tried to erase them. The journalist would find the names, the official would read them into whatever record came from all of this. The architect would make sure the framework honored them as the foundation. That was the least that was owed. To people who had been in cages and had not made it out. The least, and also the most, that documentation and accountability could offer them now. Varen was across the room talking quietly with one of the team members, planning the morning. The specific quiet industry of people who have finished one hard thing and are beginning the next. I watched the adult wolf's breathing slow into the rhythm of genuine rest for the first time in however long genuine rest had been available to it. That was a good thing to watch. The black pup had its eyes closed, but its ears were moving, tracking the sounds of the room, cataloging, still gathering. A programmer, Warren had said, programmers catalog everything. I thought about the world outside this building, the one I had arrived in through a mechanism I still did not fully understand, in a body I had not chosen, in a facility built to use me. A world with 12 facilities and a funding organization that did not officially exist, and power structures I had not begun to map, and rules I had been learning for 18 days. A world that someone had decided needed exactly the combination of people now sitting in a safe house at the edge of an agricultural property in the dark before the morning came. I had questions about this world, many of them, about its geography and its history and its politics and what the name the funding organization used for itself actually meant, about how the mechanism of placement worked, about who had built it and why, and whether it had ever been used for anything other than what this organization was using it for, about what the 12 other facilities were doing that was the same as the Ardent Institute, and what they were doing that was different, and which differences mattered operationally, about the reversal protocol. How long? What conditions? What the risk actually looked like when you moved from abstract description to the specific experience of going through it. About what I would do after, when the 11 facilities were done, when the case was built and delivered and the legal architecture was standing and the record was public and real, when I was in a form that had hands again, when I could speak, when the first thing I said out loud in this world could be something other than communicated through a nodded head. I did not know the answers to any of those questions yet. I did not know this world yet. I had been inside one building of it for 18 days and the building had been trying to use me. But I knew the people in this room. I had spent 18 days learning them through bars and pulse systems and body language and archive screens and one terrifying maze run. I knew Dr. Senna's patience, the adult wolf's endurance, the black pup's intelligence, Thomas's discipline, the tall official's gravity, the journalist's restless documentation, the architect's systematic construction, and Varen's precision. The precision of someone who had looked at an impossible problem and found the exact shape of the solution it required. Those were the resources available. Those were the people in the room. And in my experience, 12 years of it, before this body, before this world, people in the room were enough. They had always been enough when the alternative was not trying. And not trying had never once been an option I was willing to put on the table. Not in my previous life, not here. The morning would come. The reversal protocol would begin, the evidence would move, the debrief would start. The planning for 11 facilities would take its first shape on paper. All of that was true, and all of it was coming, and all of it was, in the operational sense, exactly what it needed to be. The mission had scope, the team had the right skills, but tonight was the adult wolf breathing slowly in the corner, the black pup's ears moving through the sounds of a room that was safe. Dr. Senna's hands finally empty of her clipboard. Tonight was 8 people in a room who had been in a building this morning that had tried to make them into instruments and had failed and were now here instead. That was enough. That was, in fact, the only thing that needed to be true right now. Everything else was morning. Everything else was the plan that started when the light came back. I closed my eyes. The wolf pup body was tired in the way of something that had been carrying more than its size was built for and had been doing it without complaint for 18 days. It had earned this. The body that had given me paws instead of hands and ears that could hear a badge reader from 30 feet and a nose that cataloged 40 things in outside air. The body that had leaned into an ear scratch on day 1 and cost me my dignity and given me the cover I needed at exactly the moment I needed it. We were even. More than even. I let myself stop. Not planning, not mapping, not running scenarios or building contingencies or holding the thread of 17 different operational variables simultaneously. Just the sound of the room, the adult wolf's breathing, the scratch of the journalist's pen, the quiet voices of Varen and the team members planning the morning that was coming. And underneath all of it, the faint cold smell of a world I did not know yet but was going to. On my terms, with people I had chosen and who had chosen me, with hands eventually. 18 days as Subject 7. 1 wolf pup, 1 cage, 1 facility, 1 plan that turned out to be inside a larger plan that was itself inside something larger still. And now, outside. Everyone out. The file in motion. The morning coming. 11 facilities waiting. A world that needed what was in this room to be exactly what it was capable of. I had no idea what this world was going to ask of me. I had some idea of what I was capable of giving it. The gap between those two things was where the work lived. It had always lived there, in every previous mission, in every situation where the resources were insufficient and the timeline was wrong and the backup was not coming. The work lived in the gap, and the gap was where I had always been most completely, most specifically, most stubbornly myself. That had not changed. That did not change. Subject 7, the Ardent Institute file, would eventually read, Outcome, escaped. All subjects recovered. Facility compromised, program exposed, evidence transmitted, case building. That was one way to write it. The clinical language of files and outcomes and categories that tried to contain what people were and what they did inside manageable notation. Here's another way to write it. A wolf pup woke up in a cage in an enemy facility and decided, in the first 60 seconds of consciousness, that it was going to find out everything. And then spend 18 days doing exactly that, with pause, without backup, against a 15-year program with military architecture and an organization that did not officially exist, and walked out the door with every single person who should have walked out the door and left the machine in the research wing 3 components short of its intended function. Before Varen finished speaking, I had already started building the operational map for Facility 2 in the back of my mind. Old habit, unstoppable, probably a feature. The journalist glanced up from their writing at one point and looked at me with the specific assessment of someone calculating whether what they were witnessing was a story. It was a story. I could have told them that directly if I had a voice. Instead, I held the professional nod, and they went back to writing, and we understood each other completely. The architect set down their pen at some point in the late hours and looked at the ceiling with the expression of someone reviewing structural load-bearing calculations in real time. Then they picked the pen back up, wrote 3 more lines, set it down again with the finality of something that had just been solved. I did not know what, but it looked important. Dr. Senna fell asleep in the chair, still sitting upright, still with the posture of someone at a workstation. 3 years of that muscle memory did not release in one night. Thomas did not fall asleep. He stayed at the communications setup the team had prepared and worked through the night with the steady, focused pace of someone who had rested enough. The team members rotated through perimeter checks with the regularity of professionals and the silence of people who understood that what was sleeping in the main room had earned quiet. The adult wolf slept deeply. Whatever the pre-protocol had been taking, sleep was reclaiming some of it. Not all of it, not tonight. But the breathing was steadier than it had been. The black pup slept with its ears moving. Even asleep, cataloging, even resting, building. The programmer brain that did not fully stop because stopping was not in the design, and me. The wolf pup that had been Subject 7 and was going to be Kale Dren again, and had 17 days of information in its head and 11 facilities ahead of it, resting. For the first time in 18 days, in a room that was not trying to use me, surrounded by people who were going to help me do what needed to be done next. That was the whole truth of the moment, not complicated, not requiring additional analysis, just a safe room, people worth trusting, morning coming, work ahead. The gap between what was needed and what was available had always been where I did my best work. The gap was there. The work was waiting. And I was ready for it. That is the other way to write it. I preferred the second version. I suspected the journalist, still writing in the corner with the focused speed of someone on deadline, did too. The morning was coming. The world outside this building was still there, still running, still operating according to rules I had not yet fully learned in a language I was still mapping. 11 facilities, 1 organization, 1 case being built by 7 people in a safe house who had all been in worse positions than this one and had found those positions manageable. I was going to need hands for most of what came next. I was going to need a voice. I was going to need to understand this world well enough to move through it without a cage around me. All of that was coming. Varen had said so, and Varen was precise. And precise people did not make promises that the situation would not allow them to keep. All of it was coming. Tonight was the wolf pup body resting in a safe house at the edge of something enormous. Tomorrow was the beginning of what made the last 18 days worth exactly what they had cost. I had been Subject 7. I was going to be Kale Dren again. And whatever this world needed from Kale Dren, it was going to get it. That was not a hope. That was a fact. The journalist was still writing. The architect was still writing. The world was still there. And in the morning, we were going to start making it answer for what it had been doing. All of us. Together. With a specific combination of skills and backgrounds and experiences that someone had looked at a very hard problem and decided were exactly what it required. They had not been wrong. In my assessment, which I considered reliable, they had not been wrong about a single piece of it. That was, all things considered, reassuring. The adult wolf's breathing was slow and even, and the journalist's pen scratched steadily, and the morning was coming, and I let myself stop and sleep, and it was enough. It was, in every sense that mattered in a safe house on the edge of something that had not yet begun, exactly enough.